Reborn as Uchiha Fugaku, the last clan head of the Uchiha in the Naruto world. I have a beautiful wife, but I'm panicking every day. Shisui keeps eyeing me, as if he wants to use Kotoamatsukami. Obito causes chaos in Konoha, and Danzo is always plotting against us. Even Madara, dead for decades, still wants to return and rule the ninja world. My eldest son, Itachi, is ready to kill me for some twisted ideal. My youngest, Sasuke, is Indra reborn and fated to betray the village. The clan is weak, restless, and obsessed with rebellion. I'm surrounded by betrayal at every turn. As their leader, I've come to accept one thing. It's hard to save the shinobi world. Hello everyone, Omni-sensei here with What If I Was Reborn as Uchiha Fugaku? Part 1. If you enjoy this content, please smash the like button. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. Don't forget to check out the original story linked in the description. I hope you enjoy listening to it. Uchiha Clan Grounds, Naka Shrine. If this continues, there will be no place left for the Uchiha to survive in Konoha. We must fight back. We cannot sit and wait for death. Yes, fight back. We can't just sit here and do nothing. A coup. Only by revolting can the Uchiha carve out a path forward. Uchiha Fugaku sat at the head of the clan meeting, quietly watching his clansmen argue heatedly on both sides. A dull ache throbbed in his temples. They actually think they can launch a coup with this level of power. Do they have a death wish? He wasn't the original Uchiha Fugaku. Not long ago, he had transmigrated into this world and taken over Fugaku's body. Before he could even collect his thoughts, he was dragged into this clan assembly, forced to act the part of the Uchiha patriarch. As he listened to the angry outcries of the clan, he couldn't help but feel speechless. Did these people really think the current Uchiha had what it took? Leaving aside the few who were obviously traitorous, and himself a hidden Mangekyo Sharingan wielder, the rest of the clan barely had the strength to resist the Hokage's ANBU, let alone initiate a coup. And they wanted to rebel. Were they brain damaged? If that's the case, maybe they need some brain supplements. Walnuts, perhaps. Then again, seems like walnuts don't grow around here. No wonder everyone's head's not quite right. Silence. Playing the role of the Uchiha patriarch, Fugaku couldn't afford to stay quiet at a time like this. Forcing himself to appear composed, he shouted them down. The room fell silent. All eyes turned to him. Some gazes held ridicule, others contempt. Clearly, the clan didn't hold Fugaku in high regard. That wasn't surprising. Ever since Fugaku had taken over leadership, the Uchiha's position in Konoha had grown worse and worse. In such circumstances, how could the clan still support him? Does the clan head have some wisdom to share with us? A thin elder with a burn scar across half his face looked at Fugaku with mocking eyes. He was Uchiha Setsuna, the clan's grand elder, and the main instigator behind the coup rhetoric. He had always looked down on Fugaku, seeing him as weak and overly submissive in the face of mounting pressure from Konoha. Setsuna never truly followed Fugaku's leadership. In fact, he often deliberately opposed him. Under Setsuna's piercing stare, Fugaku felt a chill creep down his spine. In his past life, he was just a regular guy. Now facing Setsuna, a veteran jonin who'd walked through rivers of blood and corpses, he instinctively wanted to shrink away. Fortunately, he now had Fugaku's memories. That gave him the experience of living as the Uchiha patriarch, and with his hidden Mangekyo Sharingan, he knew that, power-wise, he surpassed Setsuna. Steeling himself, he said in a firm tone. With the current strength of the Uchiha, launching a coup would be suicide. It's not viable, at least, not for now. Suicide? I can't agree with that. A hawk-nosed elder scoffed coldly. He was Uchiha Inabi, one of the clan's senior figures and, like Setsuna, a staunch supporter of rebellion. If you have something to say, speak freely, Elder Inabi, Fugaku said cautiously, aware that Inabi too was a hardened elite jonin with battlefield experience. If the clan head insists, then I'll speak plainly. You're underestimating us. The Uchiha are Konoha's most powerful clan. We have the strength to challenge the system. With such strength, I don't believe a coup is out of the question. Konoha's strongest clan? Fugaku's eyes sharpened. Elder Inabi, I didn't expect you to still be clinging to past glories to the point that you've lost touch with reality. It was precisely the elder generation, drunk on the Uchiha's former prestige, that had stirred up the idea of a coup. In the end, it was that arrogance that led to the clan's downfall. And how exactly am I clinging to the past? How have I lost touch with reality? Inabi retorted. It's you who's forgotten the honor of the Uchiha. Your endless compromises and cowardice have only brought more oppression upon us. Fugaku didn't deny it. It's true that my compromises have cost the Uchiha dearly. I won't argue that. But whether you acknowledge it or not, the fact remains. We're no longer what we once were. The three great shinobi wars have taken a massive toll on us. Though we may still bear the title of Konoha's strongest clan, our actual strength is now barely on par with the others. If we start a coup now, we won't just face the Hokage and his allies. We'll be up against the entire village. Do you really think we can withstand the might of Konoha? Our targets are Hiruzen Sarutobi and Danzo Shimura and their faction. We don't need to fight all of Konoha, Inabi argued. Fugaku looked at him with a mocking smile. And you don't think that's wishful thinking? Given our clan's strained ties with the rest of the village, do you really believe the other clans will let us rise to power? That they'll stand by while we take control? No, if we act, we won't face just the Hokage's faction. We'll face extermination from all sides. Shisui was at a loss for words. Deep down, he knew Fugaku was right. The Uchiha had long been at odds with other clans. If it came down to a choice, they would side with the village leadership. Then, according to the clan head, Setsuna sneered, we should give up on the coup and just let the village continue oppressing us? No. Fugaku shook his head. The tension between us and Konoha's leadership isn't our fault. It's their continuous suppression of us that pushed things to this point. Indeed, it was foolish to constantly bring up rebellion, but it was also true that the village's leadership had created this situation. Then what do you propose? Setsuna pressed. With the way things are, peaceful negotiation is out of the question, Fugaku said. So I won't say I oppose a rebellion. In fact, I support taking a harder stance, but not now. He swept his gaze across the clan members. Right now, our clan is experiencing a resurgence of talent. Shisui and Itachi are prodigies on par with Minato Namikaze. If we give them time to grow, we'll have two powerhouses akin to the fourth Hokage. Why rush into action when time is on our side? Of course, he knew that both Shisui and Itachi would eventually betray the clan. But that couldn't be revealed now. On the contrary, he needed the clan to keep placing their hopes in them, using their potential as a reason to delay the coup and buy time to prepare a better plan. The clan leader is right. Now is not the best time to launch a coup. Only after Shisui and Itachi have fully matured will the time be ideal. An elder with a pale face and a mole under his left brow spoke. He was Uchiha Mori, the second elder of the Uchiha clan, one of the few voices of reason among those constantly clamoring for a coup. True, as talented as Shisui and Itachi are, they're still too young. Their strength hasn't yet reached its peak. Exactly. When you put it that way, it really isn't the right moment for a rebellion. Give it a few more years. Once those two have grown, that will be the perfect time to act. Many of the Uchiha were swayed by Fugaku's reasoning. Though disappointed, they couldn't help but feel a sense of anticipation. In just a few years, Shisui and Itachi would come into their own. When the clan produced two powerhouses on par with Minato Namikaze, the fourth Hokage, how powerful would the Uchiha be then? At that time, even if they stood against the entire Hidden Leaf, the Uchiha would have nothing to fear. Hearing the voices of agreement, Uchiha Setsuna and Uchiha Inabi remained silent. Though they had always opposed Fugaku and considered him weak, they had to admit his words tonight made sense. The clan was thriving with talent and rapidly growing in strength. It truly wasn't the right moment to spark a rebellion. That's enough for today's clan meeting. Remember, everything discussed here must remain confidential. Not a word to anyone outside. Uchiha Fugaku let out a silent sigh of relief as he stood to make the announcement. He had successfully persuaded the others to postpone the coup. As for what came next, he'd have to take it one step at a time. It was just his luck, really. Of all the people he could have transmigrated into, he had to end up as Uchiha Fugaku, the last patriarch of the Uchiha clan. After leaving the Naka shrine, Fugaku returned home. You're back? At the entrance, a gentle voice greeted him. A beautiful woman in a kimono, long black hair flowing, smiled softly like a warm spring breeze. She was Uchiha Mikoto, his wife in this new life. Despite being a mother of two, she had maintained her figure perfectly, thanks to her life as a shinobi. She even carried a mature allure no young girl could match, like a blooming peony in full splendor. Yeah, Fugaku replied a bit guiltily. Though he wore Fugaku's face, the soul inside was from another world entirely. Facing Mikoto, he couldn't help but feel like a fraud. After replying, he mimicked Fugaku's usual mannerisms and made his way to the study based on the memories he now carried. Once he shut the door behind him, he finally exhaled. He needed time to sort through the chaos in his mind. I can't believe I actually transmigrated into Uchiha Fugaku. A bitter smile tugged at his lips. A random transmigration into a man fated to die during the Uchiha clan's massacre. What kind of terrible starting point was this? If you divided transmigration scenarios into easy, normal, and hard, his was definitely hard mode. I must change the outcome, or I'll die for sure. He sighed, mind racing. He couldn't change the difficulty of his starting point. Like it or not, this was his new reality. What mattered now was altering that future. He couldn't just sit back and wait for death. HMPH. Uchiha Itachi. Thinking of the man who would lead the massacre his supposed son, his eyes turned cold. If it were him, he would never go down without a fight. No way he'd let Itachi slaughter him. Strictly speaking, he and Itachi weren't truly father and son, so even if it came to bloodshed between them, he felt little guilt. Even if they were father and son, it still wouldn't justify lying down and dying. The original Fugaku was a fool, doing nothing simply because his killer was his own son. But even with resistance, if nothing changes, the Uchiha will still be wiped out. Though Konoha publicly claimed Itachi killed the clan, in truth, he didn't act alone. Besides Itachi, there was also Uchiha Obito. With my current strength, I don't stand a chance against him. He frowned slightly. Like Itachi in the future, his current body also possessed the Mangekyo Sharingan. Power-wise, he might not be weaker than future Itachi, but his enemies weren't limited to just Itachi. There was also Obito, manipulating events from the shadows. At his current level, he was no match. To survive, he'd have to grow stronger fast. It's a pity I didn't receive any golden finger. Who knows if one will appear later. It had already been hours since he transmigrated. Yet the cheat power every transmigrator dreamed of hadn't shown up. Maybe he wasn't in a protagonist template after all. No golden finger, then I'll have to rely on foreknowledge to grow stronger. He tapped his fingers subconsciously. Currently, with his Mangekyo Sharingan, he was at Kage level strength. To get stronger, there were two options. The first, transplant the Mangekyo of a close blood relative to evolve it into the eternal Mangekyo Sharingan, which wouldn't go blind from overuse and would significantly enhance his power. The second, transplant Hashirama's cells. These could slow or stop the blindness from Mangekyo use. That's how Obito could abuse his Mangekyo so freely, because he had Hashirama cells. If the risk of blindness was removed, his power would increase naturally. Either method could make me stronger. If I manage both, I might even evolve the Rinnegan like Madara. A sharp light flickered in Fugaku's eyes. Since he was now in this world as Uchiha Fugaku, he had no reason to wait around for death. He would use his foreknowledge to grow stronger and fight for survival. Rinnegan! The mere thought of the Rinnegan stirred a deep yearning in Uchiha Fugaku's eyes. The Rinnegan, one of the most powerful dojutsu, was a supremely advanced ocular ability. This was evident in the original timeline, where Nagato, wielding a pair of transplanted Rinnegan, obliterated Konoha, one of the 5 great shinobi villages, with a single strike, leaving the village completely defenseless. And even then, that wasn't the full extent of the Rinnegan's power. After all, the Rinnegan Nagato used wasn't his by blood. The eyes were transplanted, lacking perfect synchronization with his body. As such, their full power was far from what the original owner could unleash. Let's see what abilities this Mangekyo holds. He delved into his predecessor's memories, seeking to confirm the abilities of this pair of Mangekyo Sharingan. This Mangekyo would be his greatest trump card for now. He needed a full understanding of its capabilities. The right eye's ability is True Illusion. His eyes lit up. True Illusion, an ability similar to Uchiha Itachi's Tsukuyomi. Like Tsukuyomi, it could generate a genjutsu space, but there was a critical difference. While Itachi's Tsukuyomi allowed manipulation of time, space, and mass within the illusion, his True Illusion directly reflected the damage dealt within the illusion back into the real world. For example, if he slashed an enemy within the illusion, a corresponding wound would appear on the enemy's physical body in reality. The ability to convert illusionary damage into real-world injury, that was why it was called True Illusion. A genjutsu stronger than Tsukuyomi. In his eyes, True Illusion was clearly a higher-tier technique than Tsukuyomi. Tsukuyomi only inflicted mental trauma, while True Illusion caused physical harm. The difference in their levels was obvious. And the left eye's ability, Corpse Refinement. After savoring the right eye's power, he turned to the left eye. The moment he identified the ability, his gaze blazed with intensity. Corpse Refinement, a truly unique dojutsu. It allowed him to absorb the corpse of someone recently deceased into his own body, thereby inheriting their talents in genjutsu, taijutsu, ninjutsu, and more. If the deceased possessed a Kekkei Genkai, he could even transform it into his own. He wasn't disappointed. The left eye's ability was no less potent than the right's. In fact, one could argue it was even more valuable. Short-sighted fool sitting on a mountain of treasure and never putting it to use. Reviewing Fugaku's memories regarding how this power had been used, or rather, not used, he couldn't help but sneer. His predecessor had been blind to its value. Despite holding a treasure trove, he never made proper use of it. As the clan head of the Uchiha, Fugaku had believed his own clan's bloodline was superior in all aspects: ninjutsu, taijutsu, genjutsu. He had scoffed at other clans' Kekkei Genkai, deeming them unworthy of consideration. Thus he dismissed corpse refinement as a useless technique and never once utilized it. In his current view, that mindset was idiotic. To possess such a powerful ability and leave it to rot, no wonder the Uchiha were wiped out in the end. Truthfully, Fugaku's weakness and narrow-mindedness had played a major role in the clan's downfall. With corpse refinement, my chances of obtaining the Rinnegan have soared. Excitement surged through him. To awaken the Rinnegan, two conditions had to be met: transplanting a pair of closely related Mangekyo Sharingan and acquiring Hashirama's cells. The first wasn't a problem. Uchiha Itachi's Mangekyo was perfect for him. Given their close blood relationship, transplanting Itachi's eyes would likely result in the eternal Mangekyo Sharingan. As for their surface-level father-son relationship, it was meaningless to him now. Itachi already wanted to kill him. Why should he care about familial ties? Sparing Itachi's life was already generous enough. The real challenge lay in the second condition: transplanting Hashirama's cells. This step was extremely risky. A single mistake could lead to side effects. Or worse, his body being consumed by the cells. Even if the transplant succeeded, the fusion with his own body might still be imperfect. In the original timeline, Uchiha Madara had spent decades refining the fusion before finally awakening the Rinnegan near death. He believed the delay was due to the imperfect compatibility between Madara's body and Hashirama's cells. But what if he could use corpse refinement to absorb someone who had already perfectly fused with Hashirama's cells? Then he wouldn't just acquire the cells, he'd also achieve perfect compatibility. In that case, the time required to awaken the Rinnegan would shrink dramatically. And beyond the Rinnegan, there are other Kekkei Genkai just as powerful. He couldn't help but think ahead. Without corpse refinement, even with his foresight, his ultimate limit might have been just the Rinnegan. While the Rinnegan would give him the power to protect himself, it wouldn't be enough to stand against the Ten Tails or Kaguya Otsutsuki. But now, things were different. With corpse refinement, he could obtain other top-tier bloodline abilities on par with the Rinnegan, like the Tenseigan, the eye technique inherited from Hamura Otsutsuki, the Sage of Six Paths' younger brother. He knew how the Tenseigan could be obtained, by combining the Byakugan of the Hyuga clan with the bloodline of the Otsutsuki on the moon, specifically Toneri Otsutsuki. With corpse refinement, he could absorb a Hyuga's corpse and Toneri's corpse. That should allow him to obtain the Tenseigan. If I can wield both the Rinnegan and the Tenseigan, even Kaguya won't be invincible. He couldn't help but feel excited. Both were incredibly powerful ocular abilities. To possess them simultaneously, just imagine the power. The Sage of Six Paths and Hamura had once sealed Kaguya by working together. If he inherited both of their powers, why couldn't he do the same? Truly a mountain of treasure wasted. Once again, he sighed at his predecessor's foolishness. To possess corpse refinement and never once use it to grow stronger. But to be fair, the original Fugaku lacked the foreknowledge he had. He didn't know the paths to awaken the Rinnegan or Tenseigan. Corpse refinement's true potential could only be realized by someone with foresight like him. In the hands of someone else, at best it might yield a few Kekkei Genkai. It would boost their strength but never take them to this kind of transcendental level. "Fugaku, dinner's ready." A soft knock came at the door, followed by Uchiha Mikoto's gentle voice. "Got it." Fugaku responded calmly, stepping out of the study. Now that he had a clear path to grow stronger, the anxiousness from his early days after transmigration was gone. The future was no longer bleak. He had found his golden finger, but it wasn't a gift from transmigration. It had already been there, waiting for someone who knew how to use it. At the dining table, besides Uchiha Mikoto, Uchiha Fugaku also saw a young child around 4 or 5 years old. The child had black hair and eyes, with delicate chiseled features, like a porcelain doll. Though still very young, his facial structure already hinted at great potential. He would no doubt grow into a strikingly handsome man who would have many girls vying for his attention. This child was none other than Uchiha Sasuke. The one Fugaku disliked Uchiha Itachi wasn't present. He had left the village with Uchiha Shisui on a mission. "Father!" Upon seeing him, Sasuke called out crisply. "MHM," Fugaku responded with a nod, gently patting Sasuke on the head before sitting down cross-legged. The boy beamed with joy as if he had received a reward. Without having experienced the Uchiha clan massacre, Sasuke's personality remained normal, unlike in the original timeline, where he grew cold and distant. At most he exhibited a bit of proud arrogance, typical of a genius nurtured within the Uchiha clan. But even that pride held no weight before the identity he now possessed. This kid has potential. I need to indoctrinate him early, make sure he's firmly in my grasp. Seeing how just a simple head pat could make Sasuke so happy, Fugaku made a mental note. Compared to the two ungrateful wolves, Itachi and Shisui, Sasuke was far more promising, at least the version of him before the massacre. With the right guidance, he could grow into a tremendous ally. And not just any ally, one with immense potential. After all, Sasuke was the reincarnation of Indra. But before any of that could happen, he needed to lead the Uchiha clan through the impending massacre. Without that, all plans were meaningless. After dinner, he headed to the training yard. Although he had inherited Fugaku's memories, he wasn't originally the same person. He had to confirm whether he had also inherited Fugaku's combat experience. Without it, strength alone would be insufficient. Lacking real battle experience would greatly reduce his combat effectiveness, especially when it came to surviving the night of the massacre. He pulled 8 shuriken from his ninja pouch, slotting them between his fingers just as Fugaku used to. A wave of muscle memory washed over him. With a flick of both hands, he launched the 8 shuriken. Whoosh! 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 The shuriken flew forward, not all at the same speed, some slower, some faster. Clang! 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 The faster ones struck the slower ones mid-air, creating a cascade of collisions. Their trajectories changed as a result, scattering in all directions across the practice field. Each of the 8 shuriken landed dead center on a target, hitting the red bullseyes precisely. Fire style. Phoenix Fire Jutsu. Without missing a beat, Fugaku formed hand seals rapidly. He cupped one hand at his mouth like a trumpet and expelled a series of fireballs. They struck the 8 targets directly. With crackling blasts, the targets burst into sparks and flames. Looks like the original combat experience is still intact. He stopped and nodded in satisfaction. Landing 8 shuriken on separate bullseyes and precisely targeting them with ninjutsu, this proved that Fugaku's combat skills had been fully inherited. If his guess was right, those skills had become ingrained in his muscle memory. There would be no need to retrain from scratch. Cage-level combat power. With his inherited combat skills, strong physical foundation, and Mangekyo Sharingan, he possessed the power of a Kage. But that alone isn't enough. I have to go even further. He knew well. Just being cage-level wouldn't be enough to prevent the massacre. After all, the enemy wasn't just Uchiha Itachi, there was also Uchiha Obito. Both wielded Mangekyo Sharingan. In his current state, he couldn't hope to match them. He had considered killing Itachi before he awakened his Mangekyo Sharingan, but that would be a last resort. It wasn't sentimentality due to their superficial father-son relationship. Rather, he needed a pair of Mangekyo Sharingan from someone with close blood ties. Only then could his eyes evolve into the eternal Mangekyo Sharingan. Killing Itachi before he awakened the Mangekyo would be a waste. Itachi hasn't awakened his Mangekyo Sharingan yet. Transplanting them now wouldn't help me evolve mine into the eternal Mangekyo. At this stage, the best way to grow stronger is by transplanting Hashirama cells. Risky, but not for me. Thanks to his eye technique, corpse refinement, the risks didn't apply. By refining the body of someone who had perfectly fused with Hashirama's cells, he could absorb those cells into his own body without side effects. In the current shinobi world, only Yamato and the white Zetsu clones have successfully fused with Hashirama cells. He recalled memories from his past life. Yamato, the sole survivor of Orochimaru's experiments, had fused with Hashirama cells perfectly, even gaining wood release with no adverse effects. The white Zetsu clones were created by Uchiha Madara using Hashirama cells and the demonic statue of the outer path. They too had perfect compatibility. Whether he refined Yamato or a white Zetsu clone, both would remove the strain of using Mangekyo and increase his strength. Yamato is probably still in the AMBU, under direct command of the Hokage. Targeting him would definitely raise red flags, possibly even expose me. But the white Zetsu clones, they're abundant. Losing one wouldn't draw attention. A decision formed in his mind. Compared to Yamato, whose disappearance would stir up too much trouble, the expendable white Zetsu clones were a much safer option. After a while of training, night had fully fallen. He left the practice field, took a bath, and returned to the bedroom. Inside, Uchiha Mikoto sat cross-legged on a tatami mat, wearing a light nightgown. The thin fabric did little to hide her alluring figure. Pale skin peeked out from beneath the cloth. Her long black hair flowed down her back, carrying a faint floral scent. Seeing this enticing sight, and remembering that this beautiful woman was his wife, Fugaku's gaze couldn't help but heat up slightly. The next morning, Uchiha Fugaku awoke. Beside him lay a beautiful woman with snow-white skin, her scent lingering in the air. As he gazed at her peaceful face, the reality finally settled in this wasn't a dream. He had truly transmigrated. And not just into anybody, but into Uchiha Fugaku, the final head of the Uchiha clan. He had inherited the clan at its worst moment, torn by internal strife, beset by external pressure, and standing on the brink of annihilation. If nothing changed, in just 3 years, the Uchiha clan would be wiped out, and he would die on the night of the massacre. His only stroke of luck: he'd gained a beautiful wife. Throwing off the covers, he prepared to get dressed. "I'll help you with that." The movement stirred the woman beside him. Uchiha Mikoto slowly opened her eyes, her gaze softening the moment she saw him up. She smiled tenderly, rose from the bed, and approached to help him dress. Clad only in her nightwear, much of her fair skin was exposed, and her flawless figure was faintly visible beneath the thin fabric. It was the first time in his life someone had helped him dress, and the feeling brought a strange sense of warmth. With a wife like this, maybe things weren't off to such a bad start after all. As for the looming crisis, it wasn't necessarily a death sentence. With the power of precognition and the ability to absorb the Mangekyo Sharingan from fallen wielders, he was already far stronger than his predecessor, fully capable of altering the Uchiha clan's fate. After breakfast, Fugaku left the clan compound with 2 Uchiha guards and headed for the Konoha police force headquarters. As its captain, he didn't handle routine patrols, but he still had a mountain of incident reports and security matters to review and decide on. It was a trip he made nearly every day. "Hey, isn't that someone from the Uchiha clan? That infamous clan? Shh, keep your voice down. If they hear you, you're asking for trouble." "So what if they hear? It's not like they'd dare kill us. Maybe not on the streets, but they could easily find some excuse to lock us up." "The Uchiha clan wouldn't go that far, right? You're too naive. My neighbor's friend's friend got locked up for saying something about them and still hasn't been released." As Fugaku walked through the village, he could feel the cold, fearful, and distant stares aimed at him. And with his courage-level senses, he could clearly hear the hushed conversations all around. The Uchiha clan's reputation in Konoha was nothing short of infamy. What a clever tactic, he sneered inwardly. The clan's arrogance, their disdain for civilians and other families, surely contributed to the hate. But that wasn't the root cause. The true source of the clan's infamy was Konoha's top brass subtly manipulating public opinion, even spreading false rumors to turn the village against the Uchiha. Like what he just overheard: people being imprisoned just for mentioning the Uchiha clan. That would never happen. Yes, Uchiha were proud and aloof, but precisely because of that pride, they would never stoop to such petty revenge. That rumor, pure slander, spread by those in power to further isolate the clan. And it worked. The Uchiha clan had become Konoha's public enemy. If I want to resolve the conflict between the Uchiha and Konoha, I'll have to eliminate the ones who created it. Fugaku's thoughts sharpened. He didn't oppose using force to change the clan's situation. What he disagreed with was a full-blown coup. A coup meant going to war with the entire village. And with the Uchiha's current strength, that was suicide. The clan was no longer the powerhouse it had been in the Warring States era. They couldn't match the might of all Konoha alone. A coup won't work. The better path is Bounty's stealth assassination. His eyes gleamed coldly. The ones targeting the Uchiha in the upper echelons of Konoha didn't need to be confronted with an army. In fact, launching a coup would be the dumbest move. It would cause too much chaos, and the odds of success were slim. Given their current reputation, the moment the Uchiha made a move, the other clans would instantly oppose them. Instead, the ideal plan was to eliminate those enemies in the shadows quietly and efficiently. No need to fight the entire village. Just silence the key players, one by one. While Fugaku was deep in thought, 3 figures approached from the opposite direction. Leading them was a middle-aged man of average build, but with a powerful presence that gave away his strength. A true elite jonin. "Well, if it isn't Captain Fugaku," the man spoke with a mocking undertone. "Shimura Ryoma." Fugaku's gaze turned cold as it fell on the man. Shimura Ryoma, an elite jonin of the Shimura clan, and a prominent figure within it. As one of the clans loyal to Danzo, leader of Root, the Shimura clan was one of the Uchiha's staunchest enemies, and Ryoma was one of its loudest agitators. Much of the political suppression the Uchiha faced over the years had Ryoma's fingerprints on it. Heading to the police HQ again? Keeping the village safe every day, Captain Fugaku sure works hard. Ryoma smiled as he spoke. It was a thinly veiled jab. Keeping order meant dealing with petty crime, hardly noble work for a clan as prestigious as the Uchiha. You don't need to worry about me, Fugaku replied coldly. The police force had once been tasked with border patrols and counter-espionage, but under pressure from the village leadership, all those responsibilities had been stripped away, leaving only minor law enforcement duties. Danzo Shimura had been the main force behind that erosion of power. "Oh, I was just concerned about your health, Captain. Don't overwork yourself," Ryoma smirked. "How thoughtful of you." Fugaku's voice was ice. A leader of a hostile clan concerned for him? A weasel offering New Year's greetings to a chicken. Given the relationship between Uchiha Fugaku and Shimura Ryogen, there was naturally no possibility of them stopping for a friendly chat. The two groups merely passed each other in silence. Fugaku and his two companions headed toward the Konoha police department, while Ryogen and his group made their way back to the Shimura compound. He really can endure, Ryogen thought to himself as they walked. Their encounter had not been a coincidence. Ryogen had planned it. Knowing exactly when Fugaku would pass through that street, he had positioned himself there on purpose, hoping to test the Uchiha leader. He wanted to see if, after repeated oppression by the village, Fugaku would finally lose his temper. But once again, he was disappointed. Fugaku had not taken the bait. He remained calm and composed, displaying the same deep restraint he always had. "I wonder if you'll still be able to endure what's coming next." Ryogen smirked coldly at the thought of the next phase of the plan. As long as the Uchiha clan existed, the suppression from Konoha's higher-ups would never stop. Not long ago, under the direction of advisor Danzo, the Shimura clan had begun secretly coordinating with other families to strip the Uchiha of their duty, overseeing the village's gates, a move aimed at further weakening their position. By managing the gates, the Uchiha controlled who entered and left Konoha. This gave them significant influence over trade caravans, from which they received lucrative dividends. Once they lost this responsibility, those profits would vanish, and the Shimura clan, along with its allies, would step in to claim them. Once their primary source of income is cut off, I don't believe they'll be able to endure anymore, Ryogen thought with anticipation. He was already looking forward to the upcoming council meeting. At that meeting, the Shimura clan and its allies would formally propose the removal of the Uchiha from their gatekeeping role. He was eager to see Fugaku's reaction. Would he explode with fury, or continue to suppress his anger? Fugaku had chosen restraint every time before, but this time, it would strike at the very foundation of the Uchiha's survival. Ryogen didn't believe they could hold out much longer. And once the Uchiha broke, Shimura's objective and that of the Konoha leadership would be achieved. To the village elders, the Uchiha were a ticking time bomb. After all, they once produced Uchiha Madara, a traitorous ninja who had nearly destroyed the village. The Ninetales incident had only reinforced this belief. Of course, they couldn't openly attack an innocent clan. If they did, other clans would grow suspicious. After all, no one could guarantee their own clan wouldn't be next. Thus, a plan had formed. Suppress the Uchiha until they were driven to rebel. Once they did, the village would have just cause to eliminate them. Ryogen had to admit, Fugaku was remarkably patient. Despite the repeated pressure, he kept his composure, and even managed to suppress dissent within his clan. Yes, the higher-ups were already well aware of the voices of rebellion within the Uchiha. In fact, they had been waiting for it. This time, Ryogen was convinced the Uchiha wouldn't be able to bear the pressure. Even if Fugaku himself remained restrained, others in the clan wouldn't. They would push him to take action. From the moment this plan began, the fate of the Uchiha clan was already sealed. Meanwhile, on the road to the police department, Fugaku's eyes flashed with a subtle, icy gleam. Shimura Ryogen, if he wanted to change the current predicament of the Uchiha clan, this cycle of suppression and marginalization, he would have to deal with those in power who harbored open hostility toward them. Ryogen was clearly one of them. And though Ryogen held a high position within the Shimura clan, his standing was far below that of Danzo Shimura. That meant he had far less protection, a perfect target to start with. Fugaku had made up his mind Ryogen would be his first move. How should I do it? He considered two options for eliminating Ryogen. The first was to place a bounty on his head in the black market, offering a large reward to rogue ninjas and missing nin willing to carry out the assassination. This method was discreet. If successful, it would completely separate the incident from the Uchiha. The downside? It was expensive. Ryogen was a jonin of elite caliber. Bounties for such targets weren't cheap. For reference, Asuma Sarutobi's bounty in the original timeline had reached 35 million ryo, though Asuma also had the added status of being one of the 12 guardian ninja and the son of the 3rd Hokage. Even so, to put a bounty on Ryogen, the minimum cost would be around 20 million ryo. The second option was to secretly mobilize Uchiha elite shinobi and carry out the assassination internally. Cheaper, yes, but far riskier. If the operation failed or left behind clues, the village's ANBU would surely investigate, and if the Uchiha were implicated, the consequences would be devastating. Bounties are safer, but costly. Internal assassination is cheaper, but harder to conceal. Still, as long as it's done carefully, the risks can be managed. In the end, Fugaku chose the second method, assassination. Paying 20 million ryo for a single target wasn't a problem for the Uchiha. But Ryogen was not the only threat. There were many others in Konoha who viewed the Uchiha with hostility. To truly defuse the clan's crisis, he would have to deal with all of them. If he relied solely on bounties, even the Uchiha's deep coffers wouldn't suffice. Eventually, internal assassinations would be inevitable. So why not start now? Yes, it was risky, but with enough secrecy, the plan could work. And Fugaku had already decided he would personally carry out the first assassination. With his cage-level strength, the chances of failure were minimal, and the odds of exposure even lower. The Konoha Military Police Force, an organization established by the 2nd Hokage. Because every member of the police force hailed from the Uchiha clan, the department's emblem was a shuriken embedded with the Uchiha clan symbol, the flame fan. Truly a masterful move. Uchiha Fugaku glanced at the emblem before stepping into the headquarters of the police force, but standing in this building, so deeply tied to the Uchiha clan, stirred no pride in his heart, only cold, bitter resentment. The 2nd Hokage's motives for creating the military police force had been nothing short of insidious. First, by grouping all Uchiha into a single department, he had effectively isolated them from the rest of the village and its clans. Second, by assigning them the task of law enforcement, the Uchiha were destined to offend others by duty alone, making them easy targets for resentment and exclusion. It was not unlike the urban management officers in his previous life. Their infamy didn't stem from their inherent malice, but from their role standing in direct opposition to the general public. Even minor faults would be magnified until their reputation became irredeemable. Finally, concentrating all Uchiha in one place made it easy to monitor them, confining their activities strictly within the village. Of the 4 Hokage Konoha had known, the 1st Hokage was unquestionably the strongest in raw power. But when it came to manipulation and schemes, no one rivaled the 2nd. Compared to him, even the 3rd Hokage, who inherited much of his ideology, seemed immature. If not for his unexpected death during peace talks with the Hidden Cloud, the Uchiha clan might have long been wiped out. Upon arriving at his office, Uchiha Fugaku began dealing with the backlog of routine security reports from the previous day. There were cases of brawling, lost wallets, and drunkards damaging property. Trivial matters, all handled with impartial fairness by the police force members assigned. After reviewing them, Fugaku quickly signed off in approval of their judgments. Knock, knock, knock. A series of firm knocks echoed through the office. Come in, Fugaku said. A man entered. He wore a green ninja uniform, a black armband bearing the police force emblem on his left arm, and had dark hair tinged with brown. His presence rivaled that of Shimura Ryoma from before. This was Uchiha Yakumi, a loyal supporter of Fugaku's predecessor, once considered a trusted right-hand man. Like Shimura Ryoma, he was an elite jonin, but even stronger, having awakened the 3 Tomo Sharingan. Captain, we have a special case that requires your immediate judgment, Yakumi said respectfully. What kind of case? Fugaku asked, mimicking his predecessor's usual tone. Last night, 2 groups broke into a fight at a tavern. Both parties have been detained and brought in, but we need your ruling on how to handle it. 2 groups? Their identities are unusual. Fugaku raised an eyebrow. A simple bar brawl could be handled by standard procedures. The only reason to escalate it to his level would be if the individuals involved had special status. Yes, one group belongs to the Hatake clan, the other to the Sarutobi clan. Fugaku nodded in understanding. No wonder Yakumi had hesitated. The Sarutobi clan, home to the 3rd Hokage Hiruzen Sarutobi, was one of the most powerful and politically influential families in the village. The Hatake clan, though it had never produced a Hokage, had raised a shinobi of Kage-level strength, the legendary White Fang of the Leaf. Any clan capable of nurturing such a powerhouse was not to be underestimated. A dispute between these two clans, if mishandled, could further jeopardize the already fragile standing of the Uchiha clan. Have we determined who was at fault? Fugaku asked. According to the investigation, it was the Sarutobi who struck first. The Hatake retaliated, but mostly in self-defense. Then it's simple. Follow the law. Handle it by the book. According to regulations, the Sarutobi involved should be sentenced to 10 days of confinement. But considering who they are, Yakumi hesitated. The Uchiha's relationship with the village leadership was already strained. Further offending the third Hokage might push them into even more dangerous territory. Don't worry, as long as we provide a sound justification, that just and noble Hokage won't target us over this, Fugaku said with a cold smirk in his heart. The third had built his reputation on being a fair and righteous leader. He wouldn't easily act against that image. That reputation was now a chain of his own making. If he violated it, the backlash would be severe. Of course, the third didn't need to dirty his own hands. Whenever something underhanded was necessary, he simply let Shimura Danzo carry out the deed. That way, he could maintain his spotless image while letting Danzo take the blame, a tactic the third had used time and time again. Go, handle this according to protocol, Fugaku ordered. Then, after a pause, added, from now on, any clan involving the Sarutobi, Shimura, Uzumaki, or Akimichi clans is to be brought directly to me for judgment. Understood, Yakumi replied with some surprise, then left the office. Since they've pushed the Uchiha into this thankless role, they shouldn't be surprised when I turn it to our advantage. Alone in his office, Fugaku snorted coldly. Law enforcement may make enemies, but if used wisely, it could bring more benefits than harm. He could leverage the police force's authority to subtly suppress the Sarutobi, Shimura, Uzumaki, and Akimichi clans, all of whom were beyond reconciliation, while showing favor to the other clans. This would send a clear signal that the Uchiha were allies to the rest, slowly driving a wedge between those four clans and the rest of the village. With careful maneuvering, he might even secure new allies for the Uchiha. Inside a holding room within the Konoha military police department, 4 members of the Sarutobi clan were temporarily detained on suspicion of fighting. Keisuke, do you think we'll be punished? Sarutobi Kazune paced nervously around the room, clearly uneasy as he voiced his concern. The one he referred to as Keisuke was a young man in his early 20s. Despite their current situation, his expression remained relaxed, showing no signs of worry. Don't worry, Sarutobi Keisuke replied confidently. Nothing's going to happen. But we were the ones who started it this time. Another Sarutobi clan member, Sarutobi Yoshi, also sounded uneasy. So what? Keisuke chuckled dismissively. The current Hokage is from the Sarutobi clan. The police department wouldn't dare risk offending the third Hokage by punishing us. Not dare to offend the third Hokage? Hearing this, the other three's eyes lit up. They visibly relaxed, their tension melting into a quiet sense of pride. As Keisuke said, with the third Hokage hailing from their clan, who in the village would dare punish them, even the military police? I bet it won't be long before they let us go. When that happens, we'll pressure them into punishing the Hatake clan instead. Keisuke's tone was full of certainty. Is that even possible? I mean, we were clearly the ones who started it. Even if we're released, can we really get them punished? Yoshi asked in surprise. They'll do it. After all, we're Sarutobi, Keisuke replied with unshakable confidence. In another room, the 3 members of the Hatake clan were being held. I lost my temper. I shouldn't have reacted like that, Hatake Yuki said with a sigh. It's not your fault, Yuki. They crossed the line slandering Uncle White Fang like that. Hatake Junichi shook his head. Yeah, they went too far. To insult someone who's already passed. Hatake Takashi clenched his fists in anger. You don't need to blame yourself, Yuki. They provoked us first, and they threw the first punch. Once the police investigate, they should let us go, Junichi added. Yeah, they'll probably release us soon, Takashi nodded in agreement. Seeing the calm expressions on Junichi and Takashi's faces, Yuki could only shake his head. You're underestimating the situation. Normally, we'd be cleared and let go. But this time is different. Our opponents are from the Sarutobi clan, the same clan as the third Hokage. You mean, the police department might side with them? Junichi and Takashi's expressions shifted. There's a good chance, Yuki said seriously. The Hatake clan used to be influential, but ever since Uncle White Fang passed, our standing in the village has been declining. The Sarutobi clan, on the other hand, holds considerable sway thanks to the third Hokage. The police might just take their side and punish us instead. Jinichi and Takashi fell silent, their faces clouded with concern. Just then, the door opened and a uniformed officer from the police department stepped in. "Come with me, your verdicts have been decided." The three Hatake members followed him into another room, where the four Sarutobi were already waiting. Aside from the officer, they were the only ones present. The Sarutobi looked smug, relaxed, their faint smiles tinged with mockery. Seeing their expressions, the Hatake trio felt a sinking feeling in their chests. Their worst fears might be coming true. "Everyone's here, let's proceed with the verdict," said Uchiha Yakumi, as his gaze swept across the 7 individuals. Sarutobi Keisuke and the other 3 are found guilty of initiating the conflict. In accordance with the public order regulation, they will be detained for 10 days. Hatake Yuki and his companions acted in self-defense. They are cleared of all charges and will be released immediately. The smug expressions on the Sarutobi's faces vanished in an instant. Keisuke glared at Uchiha Yakumi in disbelief, shouting, "What? How dare you?" He never imagined the police department would actually punish them, disregarding the face of the third Hokage. Thinking of the promises he'd made to the others, that the police wouldn't dare go against the Sarutobi name, his face burned with humiliation. "We acted in accordance with the public order regulation," Yakumi replied coolly. "If you disagree with the verdict, you're welcome to file a complaint after your sentence is served." From the captain's orders, Yakumi had vaguely sensed the attitude being taken toward the Sarutobi clan. He didn't know why the captain chose this approach, but as both an Uchiha clansman and a police officer, his only duty was to carry out the orders given. "Just you wait, I'll report this directly to the third Hokage," Keisuke snarled, his face twisted with fury. "Take them away," Yakumi ordered with a wave of his hand. Officers stepped forward and escorted the 4 Sarutobi out of the room, then led the 3 Hatake members outside the police department. "So the police department isn't as awful as the rumors say." Hatake Yuki couldn't help but glance back at the main entrance. He had expected punishment for himself and his companions, but instead, the police had judged the case fairly, punishing those who instigated the fight and clearing those who defended themselves. His impression of the police improved considerably. "At least this time, they weren't afraid of power and upheld justice," he muttered. "Yeah, not like the rumors at all," Jinichi and Takashi agreed, nodding. The rumors claimed the police used their authority to oppress civilians and other clans. But this outcome clearly told a different story. Here stood a department willing to uphold justice even if it meant offending the Sarutobi clan. Could such a department really be as corrupt as the rumors claimed? They began to doubt it. Maybe those rumors were deliberately spread by someone, Yuki thought, connecting the dots with the current circumstances of the Uchiha clan. It was entirely possible that some forces had spread those rumors to undermine the Uchiha who currently ran the police department. In an office inside the Hokage Tower, an elderly man stood with his hands behind his back, gazing out the window into the distance. Age spots marked his face, and he was neither tall nor imposing. There was no strong chakra presence emanating from him. He looked like any ordinary old man, yet the intimidating gleam in his eyes, which made others instinctively avoid meeting his gaze, betrayed his true identity. This man was none other than the third Hokage Sarutobi Hiruzen. A masked AMBU wearing a dog-faced mask knocked on the door. After receiving permission, he stepped inside. "What is it?" Sarutobi Hiruzen asked calmly. "Last night, Sarutobi Keisuke, Sarutobi Hiroshi, Sarutobi Kazune, and Sarutobi Shinichi provoked Hatake Yuhi, Hatake Takashi, and Hatake Jinichi. A fight broke out between them," the AMBU reported respectfully. "The guard division has issued a ruling. Sarutobi Keisuke and the others are to be detained for 10 days. At the report, a cold glint flickered in Hiruzen's eyes, though he remained facing away from the AMBU. Even if Keisuke and the others were at fault, they were still members of the Sarutobi clan, his clan. For the guard division to punish them without the slightest leniency was clearly a slap in the face to him as Hokage. But that coldness vanished in a flash. When he turned around, only his usual warm and kind expression remained. He spoke with his usual affable tone. "If they've done wrong, punishment is appropriate. The guard division handled this well. This is exactly the kind of discipline the village needs. Tell Keisuke and the others to reflect deeply. Just because they're Sarutobis doesn't mean they can act with impunity. Don't tarnish the clan's name." "Yes, sir." The ANBU looked at Sarutobi Hiruzen with even greater reverence. The Hokage remained just and principled, treating even his own clan without favoritism. If only the rest of the village leadership could uphold the same sense of justice, there would be far fewer internal conflicts. With a respectful bow, the ANBU exited the office. carefully closing the door behind him. After he left, Sarutobi Hiruzen sat at his desk, a thoughtful expression in his eyes. Is this truly justice being served, or a targeted move against the Sarutobi clan? Meanwhile, Shimura Ryoma left the Hidden Leaf village in haste, accompanied by 2 clan members. Their destination: the headquarters of the Land of Fire's largest merchant caravan. According to the information he received, the caravan would be arriving in Konoha in a few days. For now, the village council had not convened, and the Uchiha clan still held authority over border security. If the caravan arrived as planned, the Uchiha would undoubtedly profit handsomely from it, a scenario Ryoma found both intolerable and deeply enviable. The moment he got word, he immediately left the village with his men, intending to persuade the caravan to delay its arrival. Lord Ryoma, one of his companions, a teenage boy, asked, I heard the caravan leader has strong ties with the Uchiha. What if he refuses to listen and insists on going to the village? The boy, around 17 or 18, had short hair and brown eyes tinged with arrogance. His name was Shimura Ichiro, a promising young talent of the Shimura clan. If not for the overwhelming fame of Uchiha Shisui and Uchiha Itachi, his reputation would have spread far across the village. He deeply resented this and had long yearned to challenge them, though he'd never had the chance. He'll make the smart choice, Ryoma replied with a faint smile. Anyone capable of building the Land of Fire's largest merchant caravan had to be a shrewd businessman. The Uchiha clan's influence was waning, and it was only a matter of time before they lost their authority over the village's borders. Ryoma was confident the caravan leader would see which way the wind was blowing. As for their so-called friendship with the Uchiha, Ryoma believed it was purely pragmatic, born of necessity, while the Uchiha held power. Now that their dominance was slipping, such ties would be cast aside without hesitation. But what if he doesn't listen? Ichiro frowned. Then we'll have to play the part of bandits, Ryoma replied, a glint of coldness in his eyes. He was certain the merchant would heed their advice and delay the visit, but if he didn't, then they'd have no choice but to stage an ambush and force his hand. Play the part of bandits? Ichiro blurted out in shock, staring at Ryoma with concern. If we're caught, we'll be severely punished. Even Lord Danzo might not be able to protect us. As long as we don't get caught, replied the third man, a man in his 30s named Shimura Sasuke. Unlike Ichiro, Sasuke showed no surprise at the plan. His calm demeanor made it clear he was no stranger to such tactics. Exactly. As long as we stay hidden, Ryoma said, his eyes sharp and calculating. If they were discreet enough, even if the Uchiha suspected something, they would have no proof against the Shimura clan. After all, the Land of Fire was teeming with rogue ninja. A caravan being raided by bandits was hardly unusual. A few hours later, the 3 Shimura clan members were traveling swiftly through the forest, leaping from branch to branch far from the Hidden Leaf. Suddenly, whoosh, 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 a barrage of kunai and shuriken flew toward them like a torrential downpour. Ambush! Ryoma barked, eyes narrowing. All 3 of them reacted immediately, dodging the deadly rain with practiced agility. While evading, they also drew their own kunai, deflecting the projectiles they couldn't avoid. Swish. Just as the barrage stopped, a masked attacker silently appeared behind Shimura Ichiro, thrusting a kunai toward his back. A cold chill ran down Ichiro's spine. Relying on pure instinct, he twisted away just in time to avoid a fatal blow. But the moment he dodged, another masked assailant leapt from a tree to intercept him. Slash! Caught mid-movement, Ichiro couldn't evade. The enemy's kunai tore into him, leaving a deep gash. At the same time, Ryoma and Sasuke were also under siege, each confronted by 2 masked assailants. Like Ichiro, Sasuke was injured during the sudden attack. Only Ryoma, a highly skilled elite jonin, managed to fend off his attackers without taking a hit. Who are you? Ryoma roared, glaring at the masked figures surrounding them. Who are you people? Furious, Shimura Ryoma demanded an answer from the 2 attackers surrounding him. What was supposed to be an incredibly simple mission had taken a deadly turn. They had been ambushed midway. Shock and rage surged through him. Swish, swish. The 2 assailants said nothing. Silent and ruthless, they lunged at Ryoma from both sides, kunai in hand. A killing intent, as sharp as icy wind, surged through the air. The surrounding temperature seemed to plummet. Wind style. Vacuum bullets. Ryoma's face darkened as he felt the murderous aura. Anyone who could emit such intense killing intent was clearly no ordinary shinobi. Glaring at the oncoming foes, Ryoma quickly formed hand seals. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh! Multiple concentrated gusts burst from his mouth, chakra-infused air bullets, each as powerful as live ammunition, fired in rapid succession like a machine gun barrage. Earth style. Earth wall. One of the attackers responded swiftly, slamming a hand onto the ground mid-seal. Boom! A thick wall of earth erupted from the ground, shielding against the storm of chakra blasts. The wall was pitted and cratered under the assault. Using the wall as cover, the other assailant darted around from the side, silently maneuvering toward Ryoma. Coming in from his flank, the kunai slashed mercilessly toward Ryoma's throat. Clang! Ryoma narrowly parried the incoming strike with his own kunai, avoiding a fatal blow. But the danger wasn't over yet. The one who had raised the earth wall now closed in from the front, aiming a fierce kick at Ryoma. Faced with this two-pronged assault, Ryoma had no choice but to leap back in retreat. Then, the attacker whose kunai he had just blocked suddenly revealed a terrifying transformation. His eyes flared crimson, with 3 black tomo spinning within. The Sharingan! Ryoma's expression shifted to shock. The Sharingan, unmistakable mark of the Uchiha clan. They were being ambushed by members of the Uchiha. Though the Shimura clan had a notoriously poor relationship with the Uchiha, Ryoma hadn't expected them to go so far as to launch an assassination. Were they not afraid of the village finding out? But now he had clearly forgotten his own words spoken not long ago. As long as we don't get caught, it's fine. If the ambush were discovered, the Uchiha would be in serious trouble. But only if they were discovered. Damn it! Though stunned, Ryoma was still a seasoned jonin. He reacted immediately and correctly. He quickly averted his gaze to avoid falling under the Sharingan's genjutsu. He could not afford to be caught in an illusion now. That would be certain death. Boom! He successfully evaded the illusion, but failed to dodge the follow-up attack. The Earth-style shinobi landed a brutal kick. Ryoma grunted as the kick launched him backward, slamming him into a thick tree trunk. The tree shuddered violently, shedding leaves in a cascade. His chest throbbed with pain from the blow, and his back burned from the impact. His insides churned in agony. Shing! 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 A barrage of shuriken whistled through the air toward him. He dodged most, but one struck true, slicing into him. Blood oozed from the fresh wound. Fire style. Phoenix Fire Claw Crimson. Before he could catch his breath, one of the enemies completed a flurry of hand seals and spat out a massive fireball. The flames split mid-air, clinging to dozens of shuriken, transforming them into fiery blossoms aimed from every direction. Wind style. Vacuum Wave. Ryoma paled. These were no ordinary flames. He hurriedly weaved signs and unleashed sharp wind blades from his mouth to intercept the oncoming fiery barrage. Boom! 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 Each flaming flower burst on impact, and just as Ryoma prepared to regroup, the ground beneath his feet erupted. A figure shot up from below, Sharingan spinning wildly. Ryoma tried to sidestep, but the Uchiha's enhanced vision caught the motion instantly. The kunai, aimed at his heart, suddenly slashed sideways. Slash! A deep gash split open from Ryoma's chest down to his abdomen. Blood sprayed out in a crimson rain, painting the ground. Shing! 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 Gritting his teeth through the pain, Ryoma hurled a fistful of shuriken at the attacker. The Uchiha dodged, buying Ryoma a brief chance to retreat, clutching his wound and widening the gap between them. A scream suddenly pierced the chaos. Ryoma turned sharply toward the sound, and his heart sank. Shimura Ichiro, who had accompanied him, was impaled through the chest by a kunai. Blood sprayed from the wound. Ichiro's eyes dimmed, life slipping away. Damn it! Ryoma's face was grim. Ichiro, a genius of the Shimura clan, maybe not destined to become clan head, but certainly a future elite jonin and high-ranking officer. And now, dead. On what should have been a routine mission. Worse still, Ichiro's death meant 2 enemies were now free to turn their full attention on him. His situation had just become even more dire. Ryoma-sama, run! Just then, a thunderous voice rang out. It was Shimura Sasuke, heavily wounded but still standing. Faced with another incoming strike, he didn't dodge. Instead, his hands flew into motion, forming seals at lightning speed. Slash! A kunai sliced open Sasuke's throat, but he completed the jutsu. Wind style. Tempest. From Sasuke's dying body exploded a wild cyclone, sweeping up dead leaves and dust. In an instant, the battlefield was engulfed in a blinding storm. everyone's vision cut off. Don't worry, your sacrifice won't be in vain. Seizing the moment, Ryoma sprang into motion, dashing into the cover of chaos. He had thought this day would be his end. But Sasuke's sacrifice gave him a chance to live. So the loyalty he'd cultivated wasn't for nothing. At the critical moment, it saved his life. He had to escape. No matter what, if he could make it out and report to the village, the Uchiha clan would be finished. Their sacrifice would not be in vain. The Uchiha would pay with their lives. He sprinted several hundred meters, but no pursuers came. A spark of hope ignited in his heart. Perhaps they'd chased the wrong direction. He wasn't out of danger yet, but the odds of survival were increasing. With his elite Jonin speed, if he could break their encirclement, catching him would be nearly impossible. But then his expression changed dramatically. Right ahead of him stood a masked figure dressed in black, waiting silently, as if he had known Ryoma's path all along. From this man radiated a terrifying killing intent, stronger than any of the ambushes he'd faced so far. Ryoma veered sharply, trying to escape sideways. But cold sweat poured down his back. With just a flicker of motion, the masked man reappeared in front of him, eyes spinning with the fully awakened 3-Tomo Sharingan. And then it evolved. The Tomo spun and reformed, fusing into a circular pattern of 3 curved blades, each segment containing a dark inner dot. Mangekyo Sharingan. Shimura Ryoma stared at the masked figure in black, shock and disbelief flooding his face. As a high-ranking member of Konoha's Shimura clan, he naturally knew that beyond the standard 3-Tomo Sharingan of the Uchiha clan, there existed an even more powerful eye technique, the Mangekyo Sharingan. However, the chance of awakening this legendary eye was incredibly rare. It hadn't appeared in the Uchiha clan for many years. At least as far as anyone knew, no one in the current Uchiha clan possessed it. And yet, here it was, a Mangekyo Sharingan user had appeared right before his eyes. A Mangekyo Sharingan, someone in the Uchiha clan has awakened it? His body tensed involuntarily, sweat soaking through his back as the terrifying rumors surrounding this eye came flooding into his mind. Wind style. Vacuum Great Sphere. In the face of a life-or-death crisis, his instincts kicked in, and he performed hand seals at a speed faster than ever before. A barrage of massive, cannonball-like wind blasts shot toward the masked enemy, blocking his path. This was his strongest wind-style technique, but even so, he knew it likely wouldn't be enough to harm his opponent. Stories about the Mangekyo Sharingan were often dismissed as exaggerations. To most ninja who had never encountered it, the tales sounded impossible. But as a Shimura clan elite, Ryoma knew better. Those stories were not exaggerated. The Mangekyo Sharingan possessed power that could match, or even surpass, the terrifying legends. He wasn't hoping to defeat the enemy. He just wanted to buy a little time to escape. Boom, boom, boom. Each wind sphere struck the ground like a cannonball, sending dirt and debris flying and filling the area with dust. The cloud of smoke and ash engulfed the enemy, obscuring everything in sight. Taking advantage of the cover, Ryoma turned to flee. But in the very next instant he froze. The masked figure had suddenly appeared right in front of him, completely untouched by the explosion, not a speck of dust on his clothes. Fire style. Great Dragon Fire Technique. A massive dragon of flame roared into existence, surging toward him with blistering heat. Trees along its path caught fire, and the ground was scorched black, in a perfectly straight line. Boom! Before he could react, the fire dragon struck. Flames engulfed him, launching him backward. Ah! His screams echoed as the fire devoured his body, the pain like being torn apart by thousands of ants. Dozens of meters away, he crashed to the ground, his body charred and burned all over. His face was blackened beyond recognition, the skin completely scorched. With great difficulty, he rolled over and patted out the flames, then looked up at the masked figure in horror. He didn't even use hand seals. Normally, only masters with extreme proficiency in a jutsu could reduce the number of hand seals required from dozens to just a few. But to use a complex technique without any hand seals at all, impossible, unless the jutsu was naturally sealless. Yet the enemy had clearly used fire style, Great Dragon Fire Technique, a technique that required seals, and had done it without any. It made no sense. It terrified him. And the masked man wasn't finished. Without any seals, once again he unleashed another jutsu, fire style, Majestic Flame Annihilation. A sea of flames surged forward, sweeping across the forest with terrifying force. Everything in its path ignited. It was like watching a wildfire consume the world. Earth style, Earth Flow Wall. Panic overtook Ryoma, as the flames came crashing down. Even at full strength, he couldn't have escaped an attack of this scale, and now, injured and barely able to move, he had no chance. He hastily performed hand seals, just managing to raise a wall of earth in front of him before the fire reached him. But the stone wall he conjured didn't stand a chance. Boom! The wall shattered, and the sea of flames swallowed him whole, dragging his body along as it surged forward for over 100 meters. When the fire finally died out, Ryoma was gone. His body was completely carbonized, a charred corpse, with no trace of life left. Around him, the forest had been turned to a desolate wasteland. Ashes were all that remained of the trees. The ground was scorched black. The air still shimmered with residual heat. And then suddenly all of it disappeared. The scorched earth vanished. The ashes faded. The heat in the air dissipated. The lush forest returned to its original state, completely unharmed. All except for one thing. Shimura Ryoma's corpse remained fully carbonized, black as charcoal, lifeless. So it does carry over into reality. The Mangekyo Sharingan faded from his eyes. Uchiha Fugaku removed his mask, gazing at Ryoma's scorched remains. None of that battle had actually happened. It had all taken place inside a genjutsu. From the moment Ryoma saw Fugaku's Mangekyo Sharingan, he had already fallen into his right eye's dojutsu, true genjutsu. Inside that illusion they had fought, but because it was true genjutsu, every injury sustained within it manifested in the real world. That was why Fugaku had been able to perform jutsu without hand seals within the illusion. The usual rules no longer applied. And not just sealless ninjutsu, inside the true genjutsu, he could defy logic in many other ways. Infinite resurrection, infinite chakra, teleportation to anywhere, and more. He simply hadn't needed to use those abilities. Ryoma was too weak to warrant them. After all, Ryoma was only an elite jonin, while Fugaku had already reached the level of a Kage. And with the Mangekyo Sharingan, he wasn't just any Kage-level ninja, he was one of the strongest among them. Everything about it is incredible, except for the toll it takes on the eyes. He rubbed his right eye, which was now aching. Even without a mirror, he knew it must be bloodshot, and his vision had noticeably worsened. Using the Mangekyo Sharingan had brought him one step closer to blindness. His past self had rarely used the eye precisely to avoid this fate. Fortunately, he now had a way to solve that problem. Otherwise, like before, he would have had no choice but to seal away the Mangekyo Sharingan's power forever. No Kekkei Genkai, no special talent in ninjutsu, taijutsu, or genjutsu, not suitable for corpse refinement. He walked over to Ryoma's charred body and shook his head. The corpse, severely burned and lacking any bloodline limit or extraordinary talent, was of no value for refining into a puppet. Too damaged, too ordinary. Just another casualty in the growing shadow cast by the Mangekyo Sharingan. Clan head. 6 black-clad figures swiftly approached, bowing respectfully to Uchiha Fugaku. Fugaku gave a faint nod in response. Each of these individuals was absolutely loyal to him, and every one of them possessed at least jonin-level strength. At the forefront were Uchiha Hoshi and Uchiha Min, the very two who had previously ambushed Shimura Ryoma. Both of them were elite jonin, a level above standard jonin. If not for Shimura Sasuke sacrificing himself to create an opening for Ryoma to escape, Fugaku wouldn't have needed to intervene at all. Hoshi and Min alone would have been enough to eliminate him. Thankfully, clan head took action himself. Otherwise Ryoma might have gotten away, Uchiha Min said, breathing a sigh of relief as he looked at Ryoma's corpse, his tone tinged with guilt. The target was an elite jonin after all. And he had someone helping him escape, Fugaku replied, shaking his head, showing no sign of reproach. Elite jonin, just one step below cage level, were notoriously difficult to kill. With outside assistance, it was no surprise Ryoma managed to slip away from a 2-on-1 encounter. Anticipating such an outcome, Fugaku had decided to personally lead the ambush. There are severe burn marks on the corpse, but no signs of fire in the surroundings. Is this the clan head's Mangekyo ability? Uchiha Hoshi observed Ryoma's charred remains, a hint of envy flickering in his eyes. As one of Fugaku's trusted subordinates, he was aware that his clan leader had awakened the Mangekyo Sharingan. However, the exact nature of the abilities within those eyes remained a mystery, even to them. Judging by the condition of the body, it was clear that the Mangekyo Sharingan could ignite the target directly, leaving the surroundings untouched, a terrifying and mysterious dojutsu. It was a power Hoshi deeply coveted, wishing that he too might one day awaken his own Mangekyo. Clean up the corpse and any traces of the battle. Not a single clue is to be left behind. Fugaku issued the order. Understood. The six responded in unison. Some crouched down to erase the surrounding evidence, while others stepped forward, pulling out a container filled with a special liquid. They poured it over Ryoma's body, HSSS's. As the liquid touched the corpse, it reacted like snow under direct sunlight, rapidly dissolving the body. In mere moments, even the hardest bones had vanished, leaving behind only a pitch-black humanoid scorch mark. Soon, all signs of the battle were gone. Even the residual scents were masked using a special chemical, ensuring that not even a ninja hound could track them. Only after confirming that no trace remained, did Fugaku lead his six-man squad back toward the Hidden Leaf village. By the time they returned, it was already dusk. In the past, the police force had patrolled even outside the village, and they retained knowledge of how to bypass the village's barrier. Without alerting anyone, they re-entered the village and swapped places with the shadow clones they had left behind at the Uchiha compound. No one knew they had ever left, let alone that Shimura Ryoma and his team had been killed by their hands. Deep underground, in a dimly lit chamber, illuminated by a single flickering candle, an elderly man sat cross-legged in silence. His right eye and arm were completely wrapped in bandages. A cross-shaped scar ran across his chin, and an aura of cold malice clung to him enough to make anyone uneasy. This was Shimura Danzo, one of the 3 senior Konoha advisors. He had also once led the secretive ANBU subdivision known as Root. Though Root had been forcibly disbanded by the 3rd Hokage, in truth, it still operated under Danzo's command. With the curse of Tongue Seal binding their loyalty, every Root operative remained his pawn. Lord Danzo, the Shimura clan head, has an urgent report. A Root shinobi wearing a leopard mask entered and knelt on one knee. Bring him in, Danzo ordered. Moments later, guided by the masked operative, a man in his 40s entered the chamber. He wore traditional Geta sandals and a brown kimono. Tall but lean, his sharp features exuded authority. This was Shimura Daisuke, the current head of the Shimura clan. He removed his footwear and knelt before Danzo. Lord Danzo, Ryoma has been missing for over a day now. Missing? Danzo's brow furrowed slightly. For an elite jonin to go missing, it signaled something serious. Yes, Daisuke continued. Yesterday, he left the village with Ichiro and Sasuke. They were headed to Shirakawa town in the Land of Fire. Since then, there's been no word from them. They were supposed to check in regularly, but there's been complete silence. What was their mission in Shirakawa? Danzo asked. They were sent to negotiate with the Land of Fire's largest merchant caravan. The goal was to convince them to delay their visit to Konoha until after the upcoming village council meeting. Naturally, the Shimura clan was eyeing a share of the caravan's profits. Upon learning of Ryoma's plans, Daisuke had approved the mission without hesitation. Leopard, Danzo called out after a moment's thought. The masked Root agent returned, kneeling once again. Lord Danzo, take a team and retrace the route to Shirakawa. Find Ryoma, Ichiro, and Sasuke. Yes, sir. The agent vanished, quickly assembling a team of 3 Root operatives before silently departing from Konoha. Like the Uchiha, Root also possessed secret methods to bypass the village's barrier without detection. Several hours later, the team arrived at the location where Fugaku's ambush had taken place. There was a battle here. The leopard-masked leader ran his fingers along the faint scars on a nearby tree. Although most traces had been erased, eliminating every sign of conflict was impossible. For example, gouges in the trees could not be removed unless the entire tree was uprooted, which would itself leave suspicious gaps in the terrain. He turned to a Root operative wearing an insect-themed mask. Bug, can you pick up any scents? I already tried. The scents are too mixed up, no trace can be followed. Another operative, a woman wearing a butterfly mask, had been digging nearby. There's residue from corpse-dissolving fluid here. She uncovered a charred, humanoid outline in the earth. It was a mark she recognized well. Root used the same method to dispose of bodies. It seems the battle happened here. The targets were killed, and their bodies dissolved, she said. The leopard-masked operative studied the scorch mark closely. Captain, what now? The bug-masked operative asked. Ryoma and the others are likely dead. We've lost the trail. We return and report to Lord Danzo. With that, the 4 Root operatives quickly withdrew. The Uchiha clan compound. 2 young men, one tall and one slightly shorter, returned from outside the village, walking into the heart of the Uchiha district. The taller one wore a forehead protector and a green flak jacket, the uniform of a jonin. He had short hair and a prominent, rounded nose. A tachi sword was strapped to his back. The shorter one also wore his forehead protector on his head. He was dressed in black, beneath a grey vest. With medium-length hair and strikingly handsome features, his appearance bore a faint resemblance to Uchiha Fugaku. These two were none other than Uchiha Shisui and Uchiha Itachi, returning from a mission. Shisui, Itachi. Along the way, clan members warmly greeted the two young prodigies, brimming with pride that the Uchiha clan had produced such talents. Little did they know these were two white-eyed wolves. One had been brainwashed by the third Hokage, becoming a fanatical loyalist, and even planned to use Kotoamatsukami to control his fellow clansmen. The other would one day become the executioner of his own clan, even his parents, and the key figure responsible for the Uchiha clan's annihilation. Clan head! Father! The two arrived at the clan leader's estate, located at the heart of the Uchiha compound, and greeted Uchiha Fugaku with respectful bows. HMPH. You've both returned from your mission? Looking at them, a surge of murderous intent rose in Fugaku's heart. These two traitorous wolves, they were the ones who would ultimately lead the Uchiha clan to its ruin and place his own life in danger. If he could, he would have disposed of them here and now to eliminate future threats. But reason held him back. To gain the eternal Mangekyo Sharingan, he needed to wait for Itachi to awaken his Mangekyo first. Besides, Shisui had almost certainly already awakened his Mangekyo Sharingan. Against another Mangekyo user, Fugaku wasn't confident of victory, and what he feared most was Shisui's Kotoamatsukami, a genjutsu that could permanently alter someone's will without the need for direct eye contact. Yes, we just returned after completing our mission, they replied. In truth, their mission hadn't been completed. They had been urgently recalled by the third Hokage, and their task reassigned to other AMBU. But of course, they wouldn't share that with Fugaku. Though they were Uchiha by blood, both had long since drawn a clear line between themselves and the clan. They saw themselves as existing on a higher plane, possessing a broader vision beyond clan interests. To them, clan-centric figures like Fugaku, who prioritized the family above all else, were narrow-minded and short-sighted. You must be tired. Go get some rest, Fugaku said. Though he couldn't read their minds, he had a good idea of what they were thinking. He knew they were wolves in sheep's clothing, but for now, he had no choice but to play along. Unwilling to waste words on these two traitors, Fugaku dismissed them after a few pleasantries out of sight, out of mind. Yes, sir. The two acknowledged and left together. They didn't part ways, as they still needed to report to the third Hokage. Once they were gone, Fugaku stood in the courtyard, his face calm, but his mind racing. The return of Shisui and Itachi had stirred a deep sense of unease in him. Itachi had yet to awaken his Mangekyo Sharingan, so he posed no immediate threat. But Shisui was another matter. Kotoamatsukami, a genjutsu capable of permanently rewriting a person's will, hung over his head like the sword of Damocles. He couldn't afford to have his will altered. If that happened, he would no longer be himself just a puppet. How can I protect myself from Kotoamatsukami? Fugaku pondered. The best way to prevent such a fate was to kill Shisui and either destroy or seize his eyes. But as a fellow Mangekyo user, Fugaku had no confidence in defeating Shisui. Not even a sneak attack guaranteed success. Even Danzo, with careful preparation and nearly all of Root mobilized, had failed to kill Shisui. If even Danzo couldn't do it, how could he? His own strength aside, he didn't even command as much power or loyalty within the clan as Danzo did in Root. As a relatively unpopular clan leader, there were very few within the Uchiha who were fully loyal to him. If I can't kill Shisui, then I must find a way to resist Kotoamatsukami, Fugaku concluded. As terrifying and seemingly invincible as Kotoamatsukami was, no jutsu was truly unbeatable. Even Obito's Kamui had counters. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been defeated during the Fourth Great Ninja War. Fugaku believed Kotoamatsukami must also have its weaknesses. At its core, Kotoamatsukami is a genjutsu powered by ocular chakra. If my own ocular power is strong enough, I should be able to resist it. He recalled the deadly battle between Sasuke and Itachi. During that fight, Itachi used Tsukuyomi, a genjutsu embedded in the Mangekyo, but Sasuke broke free using sheer ocular power. Although Itachi had held back, it still proved that powerful enough chakra in one's eyes could resist even Mangekyo-level genjutsu. By that logic, Kotoamatsukami could also be resisted. The key was strong ocular power. I already possess the Mangekyo Sharingan, so my eye power is formidable. If I integrate Hashirama's cells and eliminate the Mangekyo's drawbacks, I should be able to resist Kotoamatsukami. His eyes lit up. The more he thought about it, the more viable it seemed. Hashirama's cells could allow him to use the Mangekyo without degradation. While not as powerful as evolving to the eternal Mangekyo, it would still enhance his ocular power. With enhanced eyes, his resistance to genjutsu, including Kotoamatsukami, would increase significantly. My first step is to acquire a white Zetsu corpse. By refining and fusing with it, I can gain Hashirama cells. Fugaku's thoughts became clear. He now had a plan. He knew that somewhere within the borders of the Land of Rain, the stronghold of the Akatsuki White Zetsu would be present. His next move was to infiltrate the Land of Rain and secure a White Zetsu body. Screech! A sharp cry rang through the sky. Fugaku looked up to see a messenger hawk circling the village above, letting out its call. It was the signal for a village-wide meeting summoning the village's mid- and high-level personnel. A village council? Looks like we've been discovered. Uchiha Fugaku looked up at the message hawk circling overhead, his thoughts racing. He wasn't surprised that a council had been convened. Shimura Ryoma had been an elite jonin among the few not only in the Shimura clan, but across all of Konoha. The death of a shinobi of his caliber was bound to shake the entire village and trigger a formal response. Fortunately, there didn't appear to be any indication that Shimura Ryoma's death was linked to him. If there were, ANBU agents, loyal directly to the Hokage, would already be knocking on his door. Whoosh! In a blur, Fugaku vanished from where he stood, heading toward the Hokage Tower. The Uchiha compound was located on the village's outskirts, and he hadn't rushed. By the time he arrived at the Hokage Tower's council chamber, many had already gathered. There were other clan heads like him, as well as several elite jonin from the non-clan civilian shinobi ranks. When Fugaku entered, some of them looked up briefly before turning away. No one greeted him. Clearly, relations with the Uchiha were still as cold as ever. This was the lasting consequence of the Uchiha's long-standing control over the Konoha police force. The police force, under Uchiha leadership, had maintained village order for years, enforcing the law and punishing transgressions. That naturally put them at odds with many clans and individuals, breeding resentment. It was exactly what the second Hokage had intended when he gave the Uchiha that role, and it had worked. Captain Fugaku! After finding an empty seat and sitting down, Fugaku was surprised to hear someone greet him from a few seats away. He turned, not expecting anyone to speak to him usually. These meetings passed in frosty silence. The man was in his 30s, with silver-white hair and dressed in a black kimono. Fugaku quickly recalled the man's identity. Hatake Nobuhiro, current head of the Hatake clan, and younger brother of the legendary White Fang of the Leaf. Clan head Nobuhiro, Fugaku responded politely. If someone extended a hand, he wasn't going to brush it off out of pride. One of my clan's younger members caused you some trouble. I appreciate your fair handling, Nobuhiro said. He was thanking Fugaku for remaining impartial during a recent altercation between a Hatake and a Sarutobi clan member. Though the Hatake shinobi hadn't been at fault, the Sarutobi belonged to the clan of the third Hokage himself. Fugaku had resisted the political pressure and ensured justice was served, something that hadn't gone unnoticed. It was no trouble, Fugaku replied, pleased. The gesture confirmed that his strategy was working, using the police force's authority to pressure clans like Sarutobi, Shimura, Mitokado and Koharu's, who could never be swayed, while extending goodwill to the rest. More and more shinobi began filtering into the chamber. Finally, the most powerful figures in Konoha arrived. Third Hokage Sarutobi Hiruzen, accompanied by Shimura Danzo, Mitokado Homura, and Koharu Utatane. They entered in formation, with Hiruzen leading the way, and took their seats. All eyes turned to the four of them, the very apex of the village's power structure. Thank you all for coming. Today's meeting addresses a matter of grave concern. The third Hokage stood tall in his robes, his lean frame exuding strength and presence. He swept his gaze around the room, his tone solemn as he continued. 2 days ago, elite Jonin Shimura Ryoma, along with Jonin Shimura Zosuke and Shimura Ichiro, departed the village on a mission. Shortly thereafter, all contact with them was lost. We traced their path and found evidence of a battle in a nearby forest. The signs indicate they may have been killed. Gasps and murmurs spread through the room. Some looked shocked, others less so. Clearly not everyone had been in the loop. The Uchiha were rarely trusted with sensitive intel, so Fugaku had only recently pieced it together. And even so, he allowed a look of mild surprise to show. Hokage-sama, do we know who's responsible? The question came from a man in a grey high-collared coat and dark sunglasses. Aburame Shige, current head of the Aburame clan. The Aburame were closely allied with the Shimura. One of Danzo's personal guards, Aburame Torun, was from their clan. It was no surprise he was the first to speak. No, Hiruzen said with a shake of his head. All traces were meticulously erased. There's no evidence pointing to the attacker. Do we know what mission they were on? That came from a man with a pineapple-shaped hairstyle and 2 scars on his right cheek. Nara Shikaku, the brilliant strategist and current head of the Nara clan part of the famed Ino Shikacho trio, along with the Yamanaka and Akimichi. They were sent to Shirakawa town. Details of the mission are classified and cannot be disclosed, replied Shimura Daisuke, the clan head of the Shimura. He was hoping to draw on Shikaku's intellect to uncover the killer, but the mission's details were too sensitive to share, especially with Fugaku in the room. The real nature of the mission wasn't just secret, it was politically loaded. In fact, if things had gone according to plan, today's meeting would have focused on stripping the Uchiha of their authority over village gates, a further move to weaken the clan. But now, with Ryoma and the others dead, on what was supposed to be a routine mission, that agenda had been derailed. The meeting had shifted to investigating their deaths instead. Shirakawa town? Fugaku's expression flickered. He knew the place well. Shirakawa was home to the headquarters of the largest merchant caravan in the Land of Fire, an ally of the Uchiha. That the Shimura trio had headed there was no coincidence. He strongly suspected their mission had involved the merchant caravan, likely in an effort to undermine the Uchiha. He didn't yet know the specifics, there was too little information, but several clan heads glanced at him the moment Shirakawa was mentioned. That only confirmed his suspicions. Shimura Ryoma and his team had likely been planning something against the Uchiha. Fortunately, someone had taken them out first. Now the Shimura were too preoccupied to target the Uchiha again, at least for the time being. Could this be the work of wandering ninja? The speaker was an unusually rotund man, even by shinobi standards, his large frame contrasting starkly with the lean, agile image most would associate with a ninja. He had fiery red hair and wore a harness-style armored vest, emblazoned with the red kanji for food across his chest. He was Choza Akimichi, head of the Akimichi clan. Though the members of his clan were all similarly built, they made up the butterfly of the Inoshikacho trio, proof that appearances were often deceiving. No, said Nara Shikaku, shaking his head. While there are rogue ninja within the Land of Fire, they're generally weak. Few even qualify as jonin. To ambush and eliminate a squad, consisting of an elite jonin and 2 standard jonin, would require a team of at least 2 elite jonin. Wandering ninja wouldn't have the strength or organization to pull that off. What about missing nin? Aburame Shibi interjected, his voice calm. Some of them retain elite jonin level abilities. Could this be their doing? It's difficult to say, Shikaku replied. Missing nin typically don't initiate attacks on shinobi from other villages, unless there's a bounty on the target in the black market. Then, it's entirely possible. As he said this, Shikaku turned his gaze toward a man with long blonde hair. Inoichi, is there a bounty on Shimura Ryoma? None that I know of, replied Yamanaka Inoichi, the head of the Yamanaka clan, the boar in the Inoshikacho. His family's secret techniques made him the head of intelligence in Konoha, which is why Shikaku had directed the question to him. If there's no bounty, then we can rule out missing nin. That leaves only one likely possibility, another hidden village. Shikaku continued, and frankly, this is the most probable explanation. A force strong enough to take down an elite jonin and 2 jonin plus their supporting team could only be fielded effortlessly by another major village. Third Hokage-sama, Danzo Shimura spoke up, addressing Hiruzen. The death of 1 elite jonin and 2 jonin is one of the most devastating losses we've suffered since the Third Great Ninja War. We must thoroughly investigate who is behind this and issue an appropriate response. If we fail to act, Konoha's reputation will be irreparably damaged. If it had been members of another clan who had died, Danzo wouldn't have cared less. The life or death of others in the village meant nothing to him. Even fellow Konoha shinobi weren't comrades in his eyes. But the deceased were from the Shimura clan, his subordinates. So now, he was aggressively pushing the third Hokage to mobilize an investigation. You're right, Hiruzen said after a pause, glancing sideways at Danzo. He understood Danzo's true motives all too well. Still, Danzo had a point. If this incident wasn't handled properly, Konoha's standing would take a serious hit. And so, orders were swiftly given. Inoichi, contact our embedded agents in the other 4 great villages. Investigate the movements of any elite jonin over the past few days. Inazuka clan head, dispatch a tracking unit to assist in the pursuit of the enemy. Hyuga clan head, send a team to the border between the Land of Fire and the Land of Water. Investigate any recent illegal crossings. One directive after another was issued. Almost every major clan in Konoha was mobilized, either to investigate the borders or to assist with tracking. One clan, however, was conspicuously left out, the Uchiha. It wasn't favoritism. The Hokage simply didn't want the Uchiha involved in a collective mission like this. Doing so would disrupt the policy of isolating the Uchiha, a deliberate strategy. Uchiha Fugaku, head of the Uchiha clan, was unsurprised. To him, this was the status quo. Had the third Hokage not excluded them, Fugaku would have suspected a hidden agenda. His predecessor might have stayed silent in such a moment. But he wouldn't. Not this time. Lord Hokage, clan head Shimura, our Uchiha clan mourns the loss of Shimura Ryoma and his team. We are willing to assist in this operation, and would like to contribute manpower. Hiruzen looked at Fugaku in mild surprise. The Uchiha were known for staying silent on such matters. For Fugaku to speak up was unexpected. Still, there was no chance he would allow the Uchiha to break their imposed isolation. I'm grateful for your clan's concern, Fugaku Dono, Hiruzen said tactfully, but the Uchiha are responsible for maintaining village security. At times like this, patrol duties cannot be reduced. Of course, patrol shifts can be adjusted from a 3-shift system to 2. It will be more taxing, but I believe your clan will understand, especially in honor of fallen comrades. Though rejected, Fugaku didn't give up so easily. The village is not yet in a state of emergency that requires exhausting patrols, he replied calmly. Still, I understand your reasoning, and appreciate your acknowledgement of our willingness to contribute. Therefore, Hiruzen continued, I will assign Uchiha Shisui to participate in this operation on behalf of your clan. I trust there will be no objections? With just a few words, the third Hokage had skillfully deflected Fugaku's request, and offered a token gesture in return, assigning Shisui to the mission. But the truth was, Shisui had already been slated to join. He had long since aligned himself with Hiruzen. Of course, we follow Hokage-sama's decisions, Fugaku said, no longer pressing the matter. He knew Shisui had thrown his lot in with the third Hokage. Strictly speaking, Shisui could hardly be called a true Uchiha anymore. But even so, this wasn't a total loss. So long as Shisui bore the Uchiha name, his presence on the team would reflect back on the clan. And if Fugaku's guess was right, the Hokage had originally intended for Shisui to operate under an Anbu alias. Now he would be participating as a representative of the Uchiha clan, a small but meaningful victory. Very good, Hiruzen nodded quickly, eager to finalize the arrangement before Fugaku could say more. I'm sure clan head Shimura is also grateful for the Uchiha's support. Thank you, Fugaku Dono, Shimura Daisuke said stiffly, clearly displeased. Relations between the Shimura and Uchiha clans were notoriously hostile. To say they were like oil and water would be an understatement. There was no way Fugaku was acting out of sympathy for Ryoma's death. It was obvious he was using the incident as an opportunity to break the isolation around his clan. Thus, Daisuke's words of thanks were forced and reluctant. No need to thank me, Fugaku said with a satisfied smile. We're all part of the same village. Helping each other is only natural. There was a certain joy in forcing your enemy to thank you for the death of their own. As the meeting adjourned and the council members filed out of the room, Shikaku's brow furrowed ever so slightly. There was one more possibility behind the deaths of Ryoma and his team. It might not have been the work of an external force, but an internal one. A clan within the village with a grudge against the Shimura. But without irrefutable evidence, such a suspicion could not be voiced. To even mention it would trigger paranoia and distrust among the clans. And so Kizul, he kept that possibility to himself. After leaving the conference room, the third Hokage returned to his office. There, 2 masked Anbu shinobi, one tall, one short, were already waiting. These 2 were none other than Uchiha Shisui and Uchiha Itachi. Hokage-sama. Upon seeing him, both men respectfully greeted him, their eyes filled with admiration and reverence. Their posture and tone radiated sincere devotion. The third Hokage nodded with satisfaction, clearly pleased with their demeanor. Although public propaganda had painted him as the strongest Hokage in history, he was well aware that his strength paled in comparison to that of the first Hokage, Hashirama Senju. Still, he had his own points of pride. In terms of raw power, he was no match for Hashirama. In terms of strategy and political cunning, he fell short of the second Hokage, Tobirama Senju. But when it came to psychological manipulation indoctrination, he surpassed them both. This fact was most evident in how thoroughly he had indoctrinated Shisui and Itachi. Remove your masks, both of you, he instructed. Yes, sir. The 2 Uchiha obediently removed their Anbu masks, revealing their true faces. The reason I'm asking you to remove your masks is because the mission ahead must be carried out under your civilian identities. He offered a brief explanation before turning his gaze toward Shisui. Shisui, you've likely heard about the deaths of Shimura Ryoma, Shimura Sasuke, and Shimura Ichiro. Yes, sir. I've heard from my senior comrades in the Engobu. Good. Then you're to join the investigation into this matter, the Hokage said. Understood. Itachi and I will give our full effort to the investigation. No. You alone will handle the investigation. I have another task for Itachi. He turned his attention to Itachi. Itachi, your mission is to remain within the Uchiha clan and monitor their activities. Monitor the Uchiha clan? Both Shisui and Itachi were visibly startled. Though they had already aligned themselves with the third Hokage, they were still shocked to hear such a direct order to spy on their own clan. Hokage-sama, may I ask why you want us to monitor the Uchiha? Shisui's expression shifted slightly as he questioned the order. Itachi didn't speak, but his gaze locked intently onto the Hokage. Several days ago, the Uchiha held a clan meeting. During that meeting, the clan head openly expressed support for a coup d'etat. The Hokage's voice was calm but grave. What? The clan head supports a coup? That can't be. Both Shisui and Itachi were stunned. They had always known that voices advocating rebellion existed within the clan, and they had never hidden this information from the Hokage. But up until now, the clan head had always firmly opposed such actions. They never imagined he would suddenly change his stance and openly support a coup. Hokage-sama, could there be some mistake in this intel? Itachi asked anxiously. The source is highly reliable. There is no mistake. The Hokage shook his head. While Shisui and Itachi were his most successful indoctrination subjects, they were not the only ones in the Uchiha clan he had subtly manipulated. In truth, there were others within the clan who had also secretly aligned themselves with him. There are others in our clan besides us who've secretly sided with Hokage-sama? Both Shisui and Itachi were taken aback. They had never expected more of their kin to be working secretly under the Hokage's command. Ever since the fourth Hokage's death, the other four great villages have kept a watchful eye on Konoha, the Hokage said, adopting a morally righteous tone. If a rebellion were to break out, it could invite foreign intervention, potentially sparking the fourth great ninja war. He spoke as if burdened by the weight of the world, but conveniently ignored the true cause behind the Uchiha's unrest, the repeated oppression and marginalization by Konoha's leadership, with him at the center. It was precisely this long-standing suppression that had fueled the Uchiha's desire for rebellion. But even if he had realized this, he wouldn't have changed his approach. After all, this systematic pressure against the Uchiha had been a foundational policy laid out by the second Hokage. To think this could ignite the fourth great ninja war, Shisui and Itachi both felt a chill run down their spines. Shisui had seen the horrors of the third great ninja war firsthand, and while Itachi had been too young to participate, he had witnessed its aftermath. The stream of returning corpses, the endless funerals, the sorrow that engulfed the village. They could not let history repeat itself. In their hearts, an overwhelming frustration toward their clan began to brew. Why is our clan so short-sighted? Why can't they look beyond the clan and see the bigger picture of the village? How can they be so foolish as to consider rebellion? The Uchiha clan's coup must be stopped at all costs. Itachi, this surveillance mission is yours alone. The third Hokage's voice was firm. I understand. Itachi nodded deeply. For the sake of peace, for the sake of the village, he would not allow his clan to become the spark that ignited another war. Even if it meant the destruction of the Uchiha, so be it. For the first time, that terrifying thought took root in his mind. And once planted, it began to grow uncontrollably. He felt a dangerous urge, a desire to annihilate the Uchiha in order to stop them from revolting. Where the leaves dance, the fire will burn. You've done well, Itachi. The third Hokage looked at him with gentle approval. And that look only solidified Itachi's resolve. Moments later, Shisui and Itachi left the Hokage's office with steady steps. The road ahead was treacherous, but their belief in their cause was unwavering. For their ideals, for the village, they would betray their clan without hesitation, even at the cost of their lives. As the office door closed behind them, the third Hokage's kind and sorrowful demeanor vanished. In its place was a calculating and enigmatic expression. In the end, no matter how talented they are, they're just teenagers. Their minds are still immature. Despite their strong convictions, their perspectives were narrow. It had been all too easy to trap them within the illusion of duty and righteousness he had woven. Which is more important, family or the village? That should have been a question open to debate. After all, it was the existence of the clan that gave rise to the village, and it was the village that in turn protected the clan. But the third Hokage had deliberately emphasized the village's importance while downplaying the clan's role. And clearly, neither of the two had noticed. In a courtyard within the Uchiha compound, a young boy, around 4 or 5 years old, stood with a shuriken in hand. His face was scrunched up in an effort to appear serious and focused. However, because he was still so young, his attempt at a stern expression came off more adorable than intimidating. Whoosh! He threw the shuriken, which flew straight toward a nearby target. Thud! The shuriken hit the bullseye dead center. Eyes lighting up, the boy quickly pulled another shuriken from his pouch and threw it at a second target. Thud! 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 One after another, his shuriken flew through the air, each one embedding itself perfectly into the bullseyes of the various targets set around the yard, accompanied by a chorus of crisp impacts. Moments later, every target in the courtyard had a shuriken lodged squarely in its center. Yes! The boy cheered, clenching his little fists in excitement before turning to a nearby man. Father, I did it! Nicely done. The man gave the boy a gentle pat on the head as a reward, which the boy clearly enjoyed. His eyes sparkled with joy as he basked in the affection. This father and son were none other than Uchiha Fugaku and Uchiha Sasuke. In the past, Fugaku hadn't held high hopes for Sasuke's talent, believing that he paled in comparison to Itachi. Most of his attention and expectations had been placed on his elder son, with Sasuke often receiving the cold shoulder. But now, armed with foreknowledge of the future, he knew the truth. As the reincarnation of Indra, Sasuke's potential would one day surpass even Itachi's. And someone with that kind of potential, he had to keep firmly within reach. So whenever he had free time, Fugaku would personally train Sasuke, using the opportunity to strengthen their bond. Their natural father-son relationship, combined with this personal attention, had made them grow remarkably close. Father, you promised me if I hit all the targets, you'd teach me a ninjutsu, Sasuke said eagerly, eyes wide with hope. Of course, I keep my promises. Today, I'll teach you the fire style, fireball jutsu. With a smile, Fugaku began to explain the hand signs and release technique for the jutsu. Suddenly, a sharp sensation tingled at the edge of his awareness, an instinct born of his cage-level perception. Someone was watching them. He turned his gaze toward the source of the feeling and immediately spotted a figure standing quietly beneath the veranda beside the courtyard. Uchiha Itachi. Itachi stood silently in an inconspicuous corner, his eyes fixed on the scene before him. The old Fugaku might have thought nothing of it. After all, Itachi was his pride and joy, his most accomplished son. But this Fugaku, who knew Itachi's true traitorous nature, couldn't help but feel a flicker of suspicion. Is Itachi spying on me? To test his theory, he spoke casually. Itachi, don't you have any missions lately? Yes, father, Itachi replied, his voice calm and respectful. A flicker of tension crossed his face for the briefest moment, but he quickly composed himself. You're usually quite busy with missions. Since you've got some free time, you should rest while you can. Fugaku's expression didn't change, but inside his suspicion deepened. It was highly likely Itachi had been assigned to monitor him. Ever since Itachi joined the ANBU, it had been rare to see him idle. Sometimes days would pass without any trace of him. That alone suggested how busy ANBU assignments were. Now, with the village deploying large numbers of ANBU to investigate the deaths of Shimura Ryoma and his two companions, there was bound to be a shortage of personnel for everyday missions. Under such circumstances, how could Itachi possibly be free? There was only one plausible explanation. This was his mission. And it was a special one, monitoring either Fugaku himself or the Uchiha clan as a whole. I will, Itachi replied, bowing slightly, his tone obedient, his demeanor flawless. If Fugaku hadn't known the truth, he would never have suspected that Itachi, the clan's prodigy, had already become a backstabbing traitor. That's great, big brother. Train with me too, Sasuke said cheerfully, delighted to hear that his brother was free. All right, Itachi replied, a rare, genuine smile spreading across his face. These days, Sasuke was the only one who could still draw out that kind of smile from him. Itachi doesn't get much time to rest, don't bother him. I'm here to train with you, aren't I? Fugaku interjected. Okay, Sasuke agreed obediently, though a bit disappointed. Big brother must be really tired. It's fine. Father's here to train with me. Go on, Itachi. Take a walk, relax a little, Fugaku said, gesturing toward the door. Understood, father, Itachi replied. Despite his mission, he nodded and turned to leave, not wanting to raise suspicion. Once Itachi was gone, Fugaku resumed teaching Sasuke the fireball jutsu. He hadn't wanted Itachi to stick around during training for good reason. He didn't want Sasuke to grow too close to his treacherous brother. Itachi had already betrayed the clan. Fugaku wasn't about to let Sasuke be influenced by him as well. Even though Itachi didn't possess the manipulative charm of the third Hokage, It was better to be safe than sorry. After teaching Sasuke the hand signs and release mechanics of the jutsu, and letting him practice on his own, Fugaku began to ponder the surveillance. Why would the third Hokage suddenly assign Itachi to monitor me? The third wouldn't issue such an order without cause. Something must have triggered his suspicion. Could it be the deaths of Shimura Ryoma and the others? That was the first possibility that came to mind. But he quickly dismissed it. If that operation had been exposed, they wouldn't be watching him, they'd be interrogating him. Then could it be the recent clan meeting? With the ambush ruled out, the most likely cause was the Uchiha clan assembly held not long ago. The third Hokage must have learned of the contents of that meeting, and it had put him on high alert. But neither Shisui nor Itachi were present. So how did the third find out? That could only mean one thing: there was another traitor within the clan. Fugaku's eyes narrowed coldly. So aside from those two snakes, Shisui and Itachi, there's someone else leaking information. Unbelievable. The former me really failed as a clan head. One traitor after another, and now a hidden one too. His gaze sharpened with a glint of killing intent. I'll find out who it is no matter what. Late at night, in the bedroom, Uchiha Mikoto, freshly bathed, her skin flushed with a faint rosy glow, exuded a subtle charm. She lazily nestled against Uchiha Fugaku's chest like a ripe peach, radiating an irresistible sweetness that made one want to devour her whole. Fugaku, guess what I saw today? Since you came back this evening, your mood's been quite good. Something must have happened. Fugaku inhaled the scent of her shampoo as his hand gently stroked Mikoto's smooth, loose black hair, smiling warmly. Indeed, something good did happen. Mikoto smiled softly. I saw Itachi out shopping with a girl. She was very beautiful. Oh? Did you find out her name? Fugaku's interest was piqued. He vaguely remembered Itachi having a close girlfriend, though her name escaped him. After all, she was just a minor character with little presence. I've already asked around. The girl's name is Uchiha Izumi. Her father is from another clan, but her mother is from our Uchiha family, Mikoto replied. They seem very close. What do you think their relationship is? You're worrying too early. Itachi is only 11 years old. What kind of relationship could they possibly have? Fugaku chuckled. Though ninjas tend to mature faster mentally than their peers, 11 is still far too young to be thinking about romance. Not now, but who knows, maybe it will develop into something in the future. Mikoto countered, a hint of dissatisfaction in her tone. You're right, my lady, Fugaku said, but before that we should have Itachi and Sasuke a little sister first. He turned off the light, and soon the bedroom was filled with sounds that would make anyone blush. If Itachi hadn't been brainwashed by the third Hokage into a traitor, perhaps years later, he and Izumi could have grown into a sweet childhood romance. But sadly, Itachi was already a white-eyed wolf. A traitor to the clan who would one day bring a blade down on his own family. There was no future for them. The next day, Fugaku arrived at the guard division. Captain, you called for me? Uchiha Kusami, dressed in green ninja attire with the guard division's black armband, knocked and entered the office. Fugaku didn't answer immediately, but instead formed hand seals and cast a barrier jutsu. Once the soundproof barrier was set, he fixed Kusami with a serious look. I recently received news that there are traitors within our clan. What? Kusami's face showed a mix of shock and disbelief. Hearing this, he was stunned. How could traitors exist in a clan known for its pride and loyalty? Captain, how reliable is this information? It's personally verified by me. It's absolutely true. Fugaku stated firmly. Who exactly? Who are the traitors within the clan? Kusami's voice grew louder with anger. If not for the soundproof barrier, others would have overheard him. Uchiha Shisui and Uchiha Itachi. Fugaku's voice was heavy. After much careful thought, he had decided to reveal the critical information about Shisui and Itachi's betrayal to Kusami, whom he trusted as his right-hand man. What? How could it be those two? Kusami's face was full of disbelief. Shisui and Itachi were the pride of the Uchiha clan, the prodigies on whom the clan pinned their greatest hopes. He had thought the clan would reach its peak strength with them. But to discover these two were traitors was almost unthinkable, even coming from Fugaku himself, the clan leader. Captain, could this be a mistake? Shisui aside, Itachi is your eldest son. How could he betray you and the clan? I don't want to believe it either, but it's the truth. Itachi betrayed me as a father, and sided with the third Hokage. Fugaku sighed deeply. If those two are traitors, then the third Hokage must already know about the clan's coup plans. The thought made Kusami break out in a cold sweat. That's right, the coup plans have been uncovered by the third Hokage. Fugaku nodded grimly. What do we do now? Kusami's voice trembled with anxiety as if the sky were falling. Knowing the clan's coup plans were exposed meant the third Hokage would not sit idle and would likely strike preemptively. With Shisui and Itachi as traitors, the Uchiha clan's current strength would hardly resist. "Don't panic yet, things haven't deteriorated that far." Fugaku tried to calm him. But, Kusami looked terrified. The third Hokage knowing about the coup was devastating news. "I just recently found out that Shisui and Itachi betrayed the clan. But the discontent in the clan has existed for a long time. Since the third Hokage hasn't acted yet, it means he's not planning to strike just yet. Besides, we're not without hope. With my Mangekyo Sharingan awakened, the Uchiha clan still has fighting power." Fugaku's eyes transformed into the crimson Mangekyo Sharingan. Seeing this, Kusami exhaled in relief. He knew about Fugaku's awakened Mangekyo Sharingan. It was just the shock that threw him off earlier. With a clan leader wielding such power, it wouldn't be easy for the third Hokage to crush the Uchiha. So what now? Should we hold a secret clan meeting, bypassing Shisui and Itachi, to plan our countermeasures? No, we can't hold a clan meeting, nor can we reveal this news to anyone else. Fugaku shook his head. Why not? Because besides Shisui and Itachi, there are other traitors in the clan. Other traitors? Kusami's face turned dark with fury and clenched fists. Besides Shisui and Itachi, there were still hidden traitors among their own. As for the third Hokage knowing about the coup, I have a plan to deal with that. You don't need to worry about it. Fugaku's gaze turned icy. I have a mission for you. Secretly investigate all those eligible to attend clan meetings and root out the traitors. Captain, rest assured, I will find them all. Kusami's eyes burned with righteous anger. He would not spare a single one of those who betrayed from within. Within a short time, the third Hokage probably won't make a move against the Uchiha clan. Uchiha Yakumi left, while Uchiha Fugaku sat alone in his office, deep in thought. Based on his deductions, although the third Hokage was aware of the Uchiha clan's intentions to stage a coup, he wouldn't strike against the clan anytime soon. The fact that the Hokage assigned Uchiha Itachi to keep watch on him, and the clan only confirmed this. If the third Hokage planned to attack the Uchiha family, he wouldn't have sent Itachi merely to observe. They would have immediately deployed forces to surround and crush the clan. Right now, there are only whispers of rebellion, no actual action. If they acted now, it would arouse suspicion from the other clans. The third Hokage is likely waiting for the Uchiha clan to make their move first, so he can justify his actions and claim the moral high ground. The coup rumors within the Uchiha clan were probably expected by the third Hokage. Or more accurately, they might have been orchestrated by him. The upper echelon of Konoha, led by the third Hokage, had been steadily putting pressure on the Uchiha clan, likely to provoke them into rebellion. This would give them a legitimate reason to purge the clan. You won't get your way, Fugaku sneered coldly. If he were his former self, he might have fallen into the trap, the pressure forcing him to launch a coup, caught in the web spun by the third Hokage, only to be crushed under the guise of justice. But he was no longer that man. He would not let the third Hokage's plan succeed. When you try to close the net, you'll find the fish inside aren't so easily caught. The Konoha leadership believed their power was enough to suppress the Uchiha clan. But with Fugaku, their plan was doomed to fail. His strength still had room to grow, significant room. By the time they tried to trap the clan, his power would surpass what it was now, enough to tear their net apart. Half a month later, the search team sent by Konoha to investigate the deaths of Shimura Ryoma and his companions gradually returned empty-handed. The investigation had no results because from the start, their search direction was wrong. Throwing so many resources into the case was pointless. After the fruitless investigation, the village decided to abandon the case. It would become a cold case. The Shimura family was reluctant but had no choice but to accept, since there was simply no evidence to find. That morning, Uchiha Fugaku left the clan compound, not heading to the Konoha guard but directly to the Hokage tower. After reporting, he entered the Hokage's office. Fugaku, what brings you here? The third Hokage sat behind his desk, puffing on his pipe and blowing out a smoke ring. His gaze was calm, a mix of authority and approachability, a deceptively charming demeanor. If Fugaku hadn't known the Hokage's true nature, he might have unwittingly admired this charismatic man. I'd like to request permission to leave the village for a while, Fugaku said. After 2 weeks of covert observation, he was certain his judgment was correct. The third Hokage would not act against the Uchiha clan in the near future. With this assurance, he was ready to begin the plan he had long prepared. That plan was to leave the village and head to the Land of Rain to retrieve the corpse of White Zetsu. He had considered sneaking out secretly, but with the length of time needed, and Itachi's surveillance, Leaving unnoticed was impossible, so he chose not to hide it. He came straight to the Hokage Tower and openly requested permission to leave. Leaving the village? Is there something urgent? The third Hokage's eyes flickered with surprise. He had guessed why Fugaku came, but hadn't expected him to ask for permission to leave. Some personal matters to attend to, Fugaku replied, offering no further explanation. Ordinary ninja needed strong justification to leave the village without a mission, and unconvincing reasons would often lead to refusal. But clan leaders and high-ranking officials enjoyed more freedom in village affairs. For example, Jiraiya and Tsunade were often away for years without the village issuing warrants for their arrest. What about the guard department's management during your absence? Seeing Fugaku's reluctance to explain further, the Hokage didn't press. During my absence, Uchiha Yakumi will manage the guard department. He has assisted me for many years and has plenty of experience, Fugaku said. As long as the guard department is in order, then there's no issue, the Hokage nodded in agreement. Thank you, Hokage-sama, Fugaku said, and left the office. He hated staying in that office. The Hokage's hypocrisy made him sick and uncomfortable. One day soon, he would make that old man, who always wore a false smile, feel a real punch. Not long after Fugaku left, the Hokage's office door opened again. Shimura Danzo, with his right hand and eye bandaged, entered and addressed the Hokage. Third, Fugaku leaving Konoha must have a purpose. After learning Fugaku went to the Hokage Tower, Danzo had rushed over and overheard their conversation outside the office. I know, but as clan leader, Fugaku has this authority. I have no reason to stop him, the Hokage said, frowning slightly. If Danzo could guess it, so could he. I'll assign people to tail and monitor him to uncover his true intentions, Danzo declared. He wanted no unexpected disruptions to the plan against the Uchiha clan. Agreed. After a moment's thought, the Hokage nodded. Sending agents to shadow a clan leader was risky. But given the clan's rebellious murmurs, he consented. Most importantly, the agents would be from root, so even if Fugaku discovered the surveillance, it could easily be blamed on Danzo. After leaving the Hokage's office, Fugaku Uchiha returned to the Uchiha compound. Although he had already decided to leave the village today, there were still preparations he needed to make beforehand. Kunai, shuriken, explosive tags. These were standard ninja tools essential for any mission, and he had to make sure they were ready. In addition, if he was going to spend a night outdoors, a storage scroll was indispensable. It could be used to seal a tent and food, making travel much more comfortable. Before leaving, he had instructed Mikoto Uchiha to seal the tent and food into the storage scroll, so everything should now be in place. Returning to the clan leader's residence, located at the heart of the Uchiha compound, Fugaku was slightly surprised. It wasn't just Itachi standing in the courtyard. Next to him stood another person. A boy with short black hair and a short blade strapped to his back. It was Shisui Uchiha. Clan leader! Shisui immediately noticed Fugaku as soon as he entered the yard and called out. Are you here to see Itachi? Fugaku's expression remained calm, but a faint tension stirred within. As a ninja, hiding one's voice and chakra is almost instinctual, and he had instinctively concealed both just moments ago. Yet Shisui detected his approach instantly. Clearly, his senses were extraordinarily sharp. For a ninja who wasn't even specialized in sensory abilities, such keen perception meant Shisui's power had to be at the Kage level. If before he had only suspected that Shisui had awakened the Mangekyo Sharingan, now there was no doubt. Shisui had indeed activated the Mangekyo Sharingan. Yes, it's been a while since I last saw Itachi, so I came to check on him, Shisui answered respectfully. Fugaku gave a slight nod and headed inside to retrieve his tools and storage scroll. Clan leader, may I trouble you for a moment? Shisui hesitated, his eyes flickering with uncertainty as he watched Fugaku's back. What is it? Fugaku turned to face Shisui. I have some questions. I want to ask what you think a family is, and what a village is, Shisui asked, looking Fugaku directly in the eyes. Since learning of Fugaku's support for the coup more than half a month ago, Shisui had been unable to suppress the urge to question him. Now that he finally had the chance to see the clan leader, he could no longer hold back. A family is a group connected by blood, and a village is a group formed by many families, Fugaku replied, returning Shisui's gaze. From Shisui's question, he keenly sensed dissatisfaction. In the past, Shisui had hidden such feelings well, but now, he openly displayed them. Which do you think is more important, the family or the village? Shisui pressed further. Both are equally important, Fugaku said. Because families exist, villages exist. And because villages exist, families are protected. I understand, Thank you, clan leader. Shisui bowed and turned away without waiting for a reply. His response was one of disappointment. The village's importance should outweigh everything. Even the family could not compare. But the clan leader believed the family was as important as the village, a view Shisui could not accept. He touched his eyes. If one day the family truly intended to start a coup, he would use these very eyes to stop it. Shisui, Itachi called out as Shisui suddenly turned and walked toward the courtyard exit. Somewhat hesitant, Itachi hurried to follow. Like Shisui, he was deeply disappointed by their father's answer. Fugaku's vision was too narrow, nowhere near the foresight of the third Hokage. If everyone in the village shared the third Hokage's vision, the village would be harmonious, without so much conflict. Hopeless, Fugaku sneered inwardly, watching the two walk away. They were thoroughly brainwashed by the third Hokage, and no longer receptive to opposing views. There was no hope of changing their minds. Without altering his plans, Fugaku collected his tools and storage scroll and headed for the village gates. The guard department still controlled the village exits. As captain of the guard, he passed through without questioning and stepped outside the village. Once beyond the gates, he made his way straight toward the Land of Rain. At route headquarters, Shimura Danzo returned after leaving the Hokage Tower. "Fu!" he called out. A man with orange hair and a mask appeared. "Danzo-sama!" The man knelt on one knee and saluted respectfully. "Follow Fugaku Uchiha since he left the village. Record everything, his movements, who he meets, nothing is to be missed," Danzo ordered. "Yes, sir," the orange-haired man answered without hesitation and vanished. Though tracking a clan leader violated village rules, the man had no questions or doubts. As a root member, he was drilled for absolute obedience and would carry out any order without hesitation. Not only surveillance, if commanded to assassinate a clan leader, he would comply unfailingly. After the man left, Danzo's exposed left eye reflected a thoughtful expression. "Chu," he called again. "Danzo-sama." Another masked man appeared, clad in black gloves and with a short blade on his back. He too knelt respectfully before Danzo. "Is there a bounty on Fugaku Uchiha in the black market?" Danzo asked. "Yes. Currently, Fugaku's bounty is 20 million ryo." The man code-named Chu replied. Fugaku had fought in the early ninja wars and was the head of the legendary Uchiha clan. Thus, the black market maintained a bounty on him. "Increase the bounty by 10 million. Also, leak the news that Fugaku has left the village to the black market," Danzo ordered. "Yes, sir." Without asking why, Chu acknowledged and left. Danzo's expression darkened. Though the Uchiha clan talked of a coup, Fugaku himself was not a staunch supporter. Because of this, no real coup action had taken place, delaying any move against the Uchiha. This displeased Danzo. If Fugaku died and a more radical leader replaced him, the clan's rebellion would likely follow quickly, making the timing to strike near. Until now, Fugaku's presence inside the village had made him untouchable. But now, having left the village voluntarily, he was a prime target.
And that concludes this episode. If you enjoyed it, I'd seriously love it if you guys could leave a like on the video, as it genuinely helps out so much, and it keeps me going, plus it takes only 1 second. That said, have a wonderful day. See you in the next one.